Hey guys, tonight we're leaving behind our soft pillows and modern peace of mind. You're slipping through the gates of a medieval castle, stone cold, torchlit and teeming with quiet purpose. It's not your castle. It never will be. You're not a knight, not a lord, not even close. You're a servant, and tonight you've got the night shift. The outer courtyard is quiet now. The cook fires have long died down, and the last stable boy has disappeared into the hayloft. But your shift is just beginning. The guard gives you a nod, not of respect, but routine. You pass through the inner gate and immediately the chill hits you. The kind that isn't just cold air, but damp stone breathing on your skin. You already know the layout by heart. Left into the passage, duck beneath the iron sconce, past the tapestry with the faded boar. You don't need light. Your feet know the way. The castle never truly sleeps. The nobles like to think it does, but down here, underneath their oaken floorboards and feather beds, the servants keep moving. You pass a girl no older than 13 carrying a copper chamber pot with both hands, careful not to spill. Her eyes are swollen from lack of sleep, her shift stained. You nod in silent solidarity. No one talks much during the first hour of night. Voices carry through stone. You descend a narrow spiral stair into the undercroft, a vaulted cellar that serves as both storage and, for many, sleeping quarters. You're not assigned a bed tonight. You won't see one until the sky turns pale again. You drop off your wool cloak on a wooden peg and step into the passage where the rushlights are burning low. The air smells of vinegar and mouldy straw. A steward hands you a list scratched onto parchment with goosequill and barely legible ink. "Start with the ladies' chambers," he whispers. "She's retired early, but she forgot her comb. Don't wake her. And mind the floorboards, they groan like the damned." Great. You tuck the list into your apron and head toward the north wing. This part of the castle is quieter. Too quiet. You know the lady has a habit of leaving her spaniel loose at night, and last week it sank its teeth into your hem. A small thing, but it's the little injuries that build up. As you walk, you notice something. The way the chill wraps tighter around your ankles, the faint scent of beeswax and lavender coming from the upper floor. You cross the hallway and nearly trip over a bucket someone left by the wall. You mutter a silent curse and adjust your footing. No torches here, only the low flicker of a single tallow candle left by the steps. This castle is a maze, but to you it's muscle memory. The list says 3 rooms need their fires stoked. One has a cracked brazier, another is missing the poker. But your job tonight isn't just kindling embers, it's being invisible, unseen, unheard. You learn to breathe shallowly, step lightly, and never, ever linger too long near a noble's door. You pass the large double doors of the solar. The lord is still in there with 2 visiting barons, likely drinking spiced wine and talking war. You don't dare knock. Even if they called, you'd think twice. The last girl to enter during a private council was sent to the kitchen with split knuckles and no explanation. You slip into the antechamber outside the ladies' room. Her comb lies exactly where it always does when she forgets it, on the corner chair by the hearth. You pinch it between cloth to avoid leaving oil from your skin. One of her maids will swear you stole it if you don't. As you turn to leave, you catch your reflection in a piece of polished silver. Face pale, eyes heavy. You think for a second how strange it is that someone so rich and powerful sleeps just a wall away while your fingers go numb with cold. But no time for reflection. You've got 11 more rooms to check before midnight. You step softly past the chapel alcove, where the statue of St. Sebastian watches you with blank, arrow-pierced eyes. It's absurd how quickly your night fills with unspoken rules. Don't look too long through noble windows. Don't scratch your head near the steward. Don't be seen standing still. The only time you're allowed to stop moving is if you're dead, or pretending not to breathe under a tapestry. You head down toward the laundry passage, where damp linen hangs in perpetual limbo. It drips softly, and the scent of lye lingers faintly in the stone. No one's there now, of course. This is your shortcut, one of many secret routes servants learn not by training, but by trial and bruised foreheads. A sudden rustling above startles you. You pause. Was that a rat in the eaves? Or one of the castle cats prowling for scraps? Hard to say. You once heard a story about a castle rat the size of a goose that chewed through a noble's saddlebag. The story ended with a broken ankle and 3 nights in the stocks. For the servant, of course, not the rat. By the time you reach the southern corridor, your hands have gone numb. You flex your fingers. The cold down here isn't just winter, it's the kind of ancient chill soaked into mortar. You reach into your apron pocket and touch the sprig of rosemary you stole from the kitchens earlier. Not to eat, just the scent. It's a trick the scullery maid told you. Rosemary for memory and comfort. You're not sure it works, but it's better than nothing. A door creaks ahead. You freeze. It's just Tom, the boy who sweeps ashes from the great hearth. He's only 10, always barefoot and permanently covered in soot. He gives you a lopsided grin and holds up a splintered broom. "Got locked out again," he whispers. You sigh and open the servant's latch for him. One day he'll stop getting locked out. Or maybe he won't. You finally make your way to the west wing, where the tower stairs twist tighter than a miser's purse. Your thighs burn as you climb step by grinding step. At the top is the nursery chamber. You knock softly, then step inside. It smells of old milk and beeswax. A nursemaid nods to you sleepily and points toward the fire. It's almost out. You kneel, coax the last embers to life with a breath and a few curls of dried straw. The fire crackles softly. One of the children stirs and mutters something about wolves. You glance up. His eyes are shut, dreaming maybe, or remembering something you wish he wouldn't. You don't stay long. There's an unwritten rule here too. The longer you linger around noble children, the more likely someone accuses you of theft or mischief. Better to disappear like smoke. On your way back down the tower, your foot slips. Not far, just 1 step, but your knee connects with stone. You suppress the yelp, biting your lip until it stings. No one hears, no one helps. That's the nature of night service. Everything done in silence, every mistake absorbed into bruises and memory. You return to the undercroft briefly to grab a fresh rushlight. The one in your hand is stuttering, and you don't want to be caught in the hallway with a dead flame. In the storage alcove you catch sight of something unexpected. An old ledger tucked beneath a cracked barrel. It's full of names you don't recognise. Servants, perhaps, who worked here before you. Some crossed out, some marked with odd symbols. You make a mental note to look again later, when the steward's not about. As the castle slips deeper into night, the rhythm of your tasks settles into your bones. Fetch, stoke, avoid, endure. Outside, the wind howls, but inside, everything is muted, except the quiet thoughts that cling to you like dust. You wonder what the nobles dream about. You wonder what it feels like to sleep with a full stomach and warm hands. You wonder if morning will ever really come. You pass under the stone arch leading back toward the courtyard, but you don't head outside, not yet. The guards are out there, and if they see you wandering without a task, you'll be sent to clean something sticky, smelly, or cursed. Probably all 3. But tonight, you're expected at the gatehouse. The gatehouse may seem like a simple outpost, a small draughty room perched beside the outer wall. But at night, it's one of the castle's most peculiar corners, a strange in-between space, neither fully noble nor truly servant. The men stationed there aren't knights, not exactly. More like hired muscle with patchy armour and thicker accents. Most of them are locals, peasants turned guards for bread and bitter ale. They're the keepers of thresholds, standing between danger and warmth, between outside and inside, and they never let you forget it. You reach the heavy oak door and rap gently. No answer. You knock again, louder. A voice inside shouts, "If it's that girl from the stables again, tell her we're not sharing our cheese." You open the door. 3 guards look up from their dice game. One is chewing something suspiciously green and mouldy. Another has his boots off and is rubbing his feet like he's milking a goat. The third, Sir Gawain, though no one calls him Sir without sarcasm, leans back in his chair and eyes you. "You bringing trouble or supper?" he says. You hold up the flask of boiled wine you were instructed to deliver from the kitchen hearth. It's hot, steeped with cloves and cinnamon, probably meant to soothe their bones and keep their tongues loose. Gawain grunts with approval and grabs it from your hands like a starving wolf. They don't thank you. They never do. You're about to leave when Gawain jerks his head toward the empty stool by the wall. Sit. A moment. It's not really an invitation. It's a command wrapped in curiosity. These men know every servant who passes through the castle at night, and they watch more than they speak. You sit. The dice rattle again. Talk turns to things no one should really speak about in mixed company. Bandits caught in the woods, a merchant's missing daughter, and the lady's new falconer, who, rumour has it, was caught stealing feathers for his cap. Apparently nobles don't take kindly to fashion theft. You stay quiet, but you listen. That's the real purpose of these moments, to gather whispers. If you know what the guards talk about, you know what's brewing in the dark corners of the castle. Gawain leans in after a while, squinting at you. You're the one who fixed the lady's brazier last week, aye? You nod. He grunts again. She didn't burn her slippers this time. Progress. It's hard to tell if he's joking. Gawain's face always looks like it's halfway between amusement and indigestion. Still, there's a certain reluctant respect in his tone. You suspect the guards talk more than they let on. About everything. About everyone. A sudden clang interrupts the conversation. The iron bell above the inner gate. Once, slow, deep. Not an alarm. Just a signal. The start of the midnight watch. A changing of hands. A new round of tired eyes. The men stir. One curses softly, reaching for his sword belt. Another knocks over the dice in haste. Gawain rises slowly, joints crackling like firewood. He glances at you. Off with you now, and keep your head down near the chapel tonight. They're burying that priest's ledger in the wall. You pause. Why the wall, you ask? He snorts. So no one reads it, fool. Some things are best left to stone. You don't ask what's in the ledger. You just nod, rise, and slip out the door before they remember you were ever there. You slip out of the gatehouse and into the open courtyard, your feet crunching softly on frost-dusted gravel. The moon is out tonight, half shielded behind clouds, throwing silver streaks across the battlements. You shouldn't be out here long. Open air after the midnight bell is for guards, ghosts, and fools. But you've got a reason. Or so you've told yourself. There's always a reason when you're asked why you're somewhere you're not supposed to be. You make your way along the edge wall, ducking behind stacked barrels and old cartwheels, keeping to the shadows like a cat with something to hide. The chapel looms ahead, small, crooked, and quieter than the graveyard behind it. That's where the priest's ledger is going, apparently. Into the wall. You pause at the corner. Something about the story gnaws at you. Why hide a ledger in stone? Why not burn it, toss it, bury it in the woods? But you already know the answer, because stone keeps secrets better than fire ever could. You circle to the side where the mason's tools were left earlier in the day, just beside a loose slab near the sacristy. You don't touch anything, you just look. A narrow hole gapes behind the removed block, deep enough to fit a bound book. Inside, you think you see the edge of a worn leather cover, but you don't lean closer. That would be asking for trouble. Instead, you pull your cloak tighter and move on, quickly. By the time you return to the inner gate, the guards have rotated. A younger one is on duty now, barely more than 16. His helmet looks too big, and he's trying hard not to look nervous. You give him a nod. He doesn't return it. That's fine. He will, one day, after his first winter. Inside again, the hallway feels warmer, probably because your face is frozen. You flex your jaw to bring the blood back, wipe your nose on your sleeve, and duck into the nearest passage. Suddenly, from around the corner comes a sharp voice. You! It's the steward. He's not shouting, but his voice has the icy precision of someone who's been obeyed all his life. He doesn't like being surprised. What were you doing outside? He asks, eyes narrowed. You don't lie. Not exactly. Delivering wine to the gatehouse. Gawain asked me to wait for the watch change. The steward stares at you. You don't blink. Finally he exhales. fine, but there's a spill outside the ladies' chamber. Some fool knocked over an ink bottle. If it stains the carpet, you'll be the one to scrape it. You nod, already turning. Oh, and boy, he adds, stay away from the chapel wall. You don't answer, you just walk. As you reach the corridor near the ladies' room again, a rush of movement catches your eye. A maid, older than most, maybe in her 30s, slips out of a chamber with a bundle clutched tightly to her chest. She looks startled to see you. Then she hurries away without a word. You don't chase. You've seen that look before. Instead, you turn to the stain near the lady's door. It's ink, all right. Dark, sticky, still fresh. You crouch down, dip a rag into the vinegar flask tied at your belt and begin scrubbing. It's slow work and the carpet hisses beneath your cloth. The vinegar stings your nose, but it's nothing compared to the ache in your knees. You've been crouching too much tonight. As you clean, a soft sound rises from the room beyond the door. A woman's voice, not speaking, but humming. A lullaby. Or a prayer. It's hard to tell which. You finish the task and stand, leaving behind a faint scent of vinegar and damp wool. As you step away, you glance back once. That carpet, woven with lions and thistles, must cost more than you'll earn in 10 years. And still, it only takes one careless hand to ruin it. Or a spilled truth. You walk back toward the Undercroft, already sensing the night shifting again. The castle never truly sleeps, and neither do you. You descend the steps back into the Undercroft, your soles pressing into grooves worn by 100 years of servant feet. This part of the castle doesn't echo like the halls above. It swallows sound. Thick stone, thick air, thicker silence. Here, below the bustle and boasting of nobles, is where the real machinery of the castle churns on. Slow, quiet, and mostly forgotten. The Undercroft isn't just a basement. It's a world of its own. You pass the wine racks first. Dozens of them, tall as men and twice as dusty. The bottles are sealed with wax or rag, labelled in Latin, hoarded like treasure. You've never dared touch one. One boy did. He lost his position, his teeth, and very nearly an ear. Beyond that is the main chamber, lined with barrels of grain, kegs of dried fish, and sacks of onions that make your eyes sting just walking past. Everything smells of damp wood, vinegar, and root vegetables clinging to life. You duck into your favourite nook, a storage niche behind a stack of empty flour barrels. It's where the candle stubs go, the broken stools, and sometimes the extra bread if cook isn't paying attention. You fish out a crust wrapped in cloth, still soft. You take a bite, chewing slowly. No one's watching. This is one of the few places where a servant can be alone at night without someone accusing you of shirking or snooping. But you're not here just for bread. You light a small tallow stub and make your way deeper, past a collapsed wooden partition, and into the narrow service corridor that snakes behind the kitchen flue. Here, the walls sweat. Literally. Condensation beads on the stone, and when you run your fingers across it, they come away slick. You come upon the Undercroft dormitory. It's not much. Just a few straw pallets lined up beneath low arches, each with a wool blanket and a wooden chest, most missing their lids. A few servants are already collapsed there. The spit boy snoring open-mouthed, the assistant laundress curled like a cat with her apron still on, one of the boot boys muttering nonsense in his sleep. You're not jealous. Not really. They've already worked 12 hours, and they'll be up again by dawn. You set down your candle and sit on an overturned bucket. Not to rest, just to stop moving for once. From here, you can hear things the castle tries to keep quiet. There's a rhythm to night movement. The steward's boots pacing above. The creak of the lady's door. The clink of armour as a guard shifts at his post. But below all of that, there's something else. The breathing of the castle itself. A low, groaning pulse. Wind slipping through forgotten tunnels, rats scraping behind plaster, pipes gurgling like sleeping beasts. You once heard someone say that the oldest castles were alive in a way, that their stones remembered every step, every scream, every secret. It doesn't sound so far-fetched when you sit here long enough. You remember a story Elric told once, the old steward who died last spring. He said that one winter, a servant disappeared down here, gone without a trace. They searched every room, every tunnel, found nothing but a single shoe wedged between two barrels. No blood, no struggle, just one shoe. You glance at the flour barrels behind you, still there, for now. You stand, stretch your legs, and brush the crumbs from your apron. The bucket leaves a faint ring of chill on the back of your thighs. You'd like to stay, just for a minute more, but you can't. Down here, stillness is suspicion. So you pick up your candle and head toward the far archway, where the air smells of iron and old rope. This is the corridor no one likes to take. It leads to the old wine vault, now mostly empty, and the sealed cistern. Some say it connects to a forgotten tunnel beneath the castle. Others say it's just haunted. Either way, the steward's list says someone left a sack of firewood near the vent and it needs to be moved before the coals suffocate. And guess who's the someone? As you step through the arch, the temperature drops again. You can see your breath now, faint as a ghost. Your candle flickers violently, nearly going out. You shield it with your hand, and as you do, you catch sight of something unusual. A trail of damp footprints leading away from the vault. Not boot prints. Bare feet. Small. You freeze. There are no children down here tonight. At least there shouldn't be. You follow slowly, one step at a time. The prints lead around the corner past the firewood and vanish near a pile of empty crates. You pause, just crates and shadow. You whisper, low. Hello? Nothing. You back away. The castle makes things up sometimes. Not out of malice, just out of memory. You've worked here long enough to know that. Still, your skin crawls. You gather the firewood in your arms and stagger backward into light. As you turn to leave, a crate shifts slightly behind you. You don't look. By the time you return to the main passage, your arms ache and your candle is nearly dead. You set the wood beside the hearth near the hall entrance and stretch your back. The steward will see it in the morning and take credit. He always does. A scullery girl passes by, carrying a chipped water jug and humming some lullaby from the village. Her eyes are red-rimmed with exhaustion, but she nods to you. "You seen my spoon?" she asks. "The one with the bent handle?" You shake your head. "Didn't think so." She keeps walking, muttering. "Only had two. In the world above, spoons are silver and engraved. Down here, one bent iron spoon is half your status." You return to the Undercroft's main chamber and pause near the crates of soap. The smell is sharp, almost peppery. You realise you haven't washed your hands since the spill outside the ladies' room. A luxury, really. Warm water, soap, time. You dip your fingers into a basin left behind by the laundry team and rub them briskly, ignoring the sting in a half-healed cut across your knuckle. As you dry them on your apron, you hear a distant bell chime twice. Not the big one in the tower. The little iron one by the pantry, the one used only for servant-to-servant messages. 2 chimes means spilled something. Urgent. You groan inwardly. Your knees ache. Your back is a twisted rope. But the night moves on, and you with it. You grab your rag bundle, sigh toward the ceiling and follow the sound. Just another mess waiting in the dark. Maybe wine, maybe blood, maybe beetroot stew from a dropped tray. One time it looked like someone had been murdered. Cook nearly fainted. As you climb the narrow servant stair behind the kitchen, your mind drifts again. To that ledger Gawain mentioned, the crate that moved, the missing spoon. It's only the beginning of the night, and already the castle is whispering. And you? You're the one they've told to listen. The stair from the Undercroft brings you up behind the buttery, where 2 enormous barrels of cider rest against the wall like dozing animals. You press past them, careful not to knock the spigot. Once, someone tripped on a mouse and spilled half a barrel during the harvest feast. The steward made him mop it with a bedsheet. No one's seen that sheet since. The pantry bell had rung twice, which means trouble. Not noble trouble. That's a loud scream and a clatter of porcelain. This is servant trouble. Slippery, quiet, and potentially catastrophic. You enter the side passage that leads to the small hall. A chamber used only when the main one is closed for cleaning or something private is going on. And tonight, it's both. The place is empty now, but the air still smells of grease and boiled greens. A bench is overturned. A wooden cup rolls gently along the floor, and in the centre of the rush-strewn flagstones someone has spilled a full bowl of barley stew, meat and all. The contents are still steaming, which means the spill was recent. Kneeling beside the mess is Edric, the meat turner's apprentice. He's about 12, all elbows and panic. "She didn't mean to," he stammers before you even ask. "She slipped. She didn't mean..." You raise your eyebrows. From behind the side door, a girl emerges, maybe 15, with a bleeding knee and barley stuck to her apron. You recognize her. Lisbeth, new. You crouch down beside the stew, taking in the splatter pattern and the edge of the bowl. Clay, not pewter. So this wasn't noble food. It was a servant's portion, but one of the better ones, meat included, possibly cook's leftover bowl, possibly meant for someone higher up, which means Lisbeth spilled not just food, but favour. You grab a cloth from your belt and start sopping up the worst of it. Edric joins you. Lisbeth doesn't move. She just stares at her knee. "You'll need to clean that up before the steward sees," you murmur. Lisbeth nods, silent. Edric whispers, "She slipped on the rushes. They were damp, from the window leak." You know that leak. Everyone does. It's been there since the last storm, but the steward claims there's no money to fix it. You also know he'll blame the spill on someone's carelessness, not a draft from the ivy-choked slit high above. You finish the cloth work and gather the soaked rushes into a pile. You'll burn them later, hopefully before the smell sets in. "You all right?" you ask the girl. She looks up at you, eyes wide and rimmed red. "Will I be sent out?" It's a reasonable fear. Servants are dismissed for less, especially new ones, especially girls who make noble corridors dirty. Depends who finds out, you say, not unkindly. But if you clean it fast and stay quiet, you leave the sentence hanging. You don't promise anything. No one can down here. She nods again. She still hasn't looked at her knee. You send Edric to fetch fresh rushes from the laundry store. Not technically his job, but you doubt the steward will notice. The boy sprints off like his life depends on it. Once they're gone, you take a moment to peer into the corner where the spilled meat has pooled. There's still a good chunk intact. You glance over your shoulder, then wrap it in your cloth and tuck it into your apron. Waste not, especially not meat. You stand, wipe your hands, and hear a rustle behind the screen door to the buttery. Someone's been watching. You pretend not to notice. Eyes in the dark are part of castle life. You just never know whose they are. You step out of the buttery corridor and into the main passage, the scent of the barley stew still clinging to your apron. The meat lumped inside it is warm against your side. Too warm, honestly. You'll need to wrap it in cool linen soon, or the kitchen rats will find you before the cook does. You walk briskly now, heading toward your next task, lighting the rest of the castle for the night. Most folks think castles are always lit up at night with flickering torches and roaring hearths, like some festival in a painting. They've clearly never lived in one. You enter the side chamber where the rushlights are stored, thin candles made from dried reeds dipped in animal fat. They're cheap, short-lived, and they stink something awful. But they're the lifeblood of the castle after sunset. Without them, the halls fall into a darkness so deep you'd think the stones were swallowing the light whole. You collect a bundle of 10 rushlights and head out with flint and steel in your pouch. There's a route to follow, outer corridors first, then guest chambers, then privies. The nobles' rooms are already lit by finer tallow candles, but you're not allowed to touch those. The steward's rule, if your fingers smell of mutton fat instead of beeswax, you don't belong in the gold-lit rooms. The first corridor you tackle is cold enough to numb your fingers within seconds. You fumble with the flint, strike once, twice. Finally a spark catches. The rushlight flares to life, casting a jittery glow on the stone walls. You slot it into a crude iron sconce and the shadows leap backward, unwilling. You move to the next one, and the next. You fall into rhythm. It's a kind of power, you think, to bring light where there was none. You pass by the musician's gallery, which is empty save for a forgotten lute. Its strings are frayed. You pause long enough to pluck one, just once. A soft, sorrowful note rings out, then silence. You move on. The next rushlight sputters out too quickly. Poor dipping. You replace it and mutter under your breath about the tallow boy who likely skimmed wax to make candles for his sweetheart. That's the thing about castle servants. Even in places ruled by hierarchy and punishment, there's still romance. Sneaky, smoky, and usually foolish. You reach the lower cloister, a covered walkway open to the courtyard. Wind howls through the arches, nearly snuffing your flame. You cup your hand around it like a parent shielding a child. The cold out here bites harder than a dog. Suddenly a shadow shifts near the well. You freeze. For a breathless moment you think it might be a guard or worse, a noble. But no, just a cloaked figure standing still facing the well, not drinking, not drawing water, just watching. You move quickly, rushlight in hand, and slip into the next hallway. Not your business. That's rule number 1 of night duty. Don't go poking your nose where torches don't burn. You light the last rushlight near the chapel vestibule and lean against the wall to catch your breath. The corridor is dimly lit now, just enough for a passing servant not to trip over their own tired feet. The castle is full of movement, but the light never fully keeps up. There are always corners, always shadows. Back near the pantry, you find Edric returning with a bundle of dry rushes for Lisbeth. He gives you a tired smile, the kind that says, "We made it through that one." You return the smile. You've earned it. As you pass by the kitchen, you slip in quickly, making sure no one is watching. In the corner hearth, the coals are still faintly warm. You unwrap the bit of barley meat, press it into the crook of a clean rag, and set it near the brick to keep until morning. You whisper, "Don't burn," and turn away. The castle is nearly quiet now, but the lights you've left behind will burn another hour or two, just enough for others like you to make it through. And when they go out, well, that's someone else's problem. Your legs ache, your hands reek of tallow and vinegar, and you're barely halfway through the night. But now comes one of the trickiest, quietest, and most dangerous parts of your shift: bedding down the nobles. Not tucking them in, of course. You wouldn't dare. No, your job is to tiptoe through their rooms after they've retired, adjusting fires, picking up fallen slippers, relighting candles, replacing water pitchers, collecting chamber pots, and doing it all without being seen, heard, or, God forbid, caught staring. You begin with the eastern wing, where the guest chambers are arranged like beads along a curved hallway. Most are dark, already silent, but a few flicker with low light, indicating their occupants are still awake. You skip those. Nobles awake at this hour are unpredictable and too often bored enough to invent punishments. The first door you try is Lady Isolde's. You know her habits well. She takes wine late, always forgets her comb, and insists her hearth be restoked before midnight or she'll freeze to glass, as she once declared in front of the entire great hall. You open the servant door, thin, silent, nearly invisible from the inside, and step into the chamber's alcove. You don't go near her bed. You stay in the edges, working quickly. The embers are nearly out. You kneel, arrange the coals with practiced hands, and add 2 splits of birch, which light clean and without much crackling. A single breath helps them catch. The fire hisses softly. You pour out the dregs of her water jug, refill it from your canister, and place it back on her bedside stand. Her slippers are askew. You nudge them gently into place with the side of your foot. Behind the canopy you hear breathing, deep, steady. She's asleep. You allow yourself one glance, just a silhouette, a pale arm resting above the coverlet, dozens of pearls stitched into the bed curtains. Her life is so far from yours, it may as well be carved from marble. But she dreams, same as you. Maybe. You slip out without a sound. The next room is harder. Sir Baldwin, visiting from the northern counties, a knight who always smells of boiled onions and bad wine. You enter through the same silent side door and nearly trip over his boots, left in the middle of the floor. One is tipped sideways, leaking something that looks suspiciously like gravy. You set about your work with care, dreading the possibility of him waking. He's the type to call you rat boy and throw whatever's nearest, once a pewter goblet, another time a live partridge. You don't ask where he gets them. You reach the hearth and crouch. The fire's dead here. You begin laying a new bed of kindling when a sharp voice cuts through the dark. "Who's there?" Your body goes cold. You remain still, silent. You've done this before. Seconds pass. Then, a long, wet snore. He's talking in his sleep. You exhale. Barely. You finish building the fire, this time more quietly. No bellows, just breath. You set down the poker, gather your tools, and turn, only to find a maid already standing in the corner. She's watching you, holding a chamber pot. You blink. She blinks back. No one says a word. Then, in perfect silence, she tiptoes past you, sets the pot down with a nod, and vanishes out the same hidden door you'll use in a moment. You never learn her name. You don't stop to ask who she was. In the servant world, anonymity is armour. You slip out of Sir Baldwin's chamber with your pulse still humming in your ears, feeling the faint sting of smoke in your throat and the sweat starting to chill down your back. Next on the list, the Lord and Lady's main chambers. You pause at the top of the narrow servant stair that leads directly behind the master rooms. You take a moment to breathe. This one's delicate. The rules are different here. Not written, not spoken, but burned into every servant's memory. You push open the hidden panel behind the wardrobe. Inside the Lord's antechamber, everything is velvet and gold. Even the floor muffles your steps like a warning. You move slowly, letting the door click shut behind you. The Lord's main room lies beyond another arch, curtained and lit by a single hanging lantern. You don't go in. You're not supposed to. But you know the steward always wants a fire check, just enough to keep it glowing until the footman arrives at sunrise. You kneel at the hearth. It's massive, big enough to roast a pig in, and half filled with red coals. Perfect. You shift a log to expose more flame, then pause. A faint sound filters in. Voices. Not the Lord and Lady. Two men. One low and gravelly. The other faster, angrier, whispering with urgency. You can't hear everything, but one word stands out. Debt. You freeze. The Lord isn't supposed to owe anyone anything, at least not according to the feast day speeches he bellows from the high table. But you don't linger. You place the iron tongs gently back on their stand and retreat the way you came, heart thudding. You make a mental note. When the steward says the family is entertaining guests for a fortnight, it might mean something very different. Next, the lady's solar. A more refined room, soft blue drapes, cushions that have never seen a wash basin, and a faint scent of lavender oil. She always leaves her candle snuffer in the wrong place. Sure enough, there it is, teetering on the edge of the shelf. You adjust it, careful not to knock the inkpot nearby. You glance toward her writing desk, strewn with papers, mostly dried petals, a few broken quills, but tucked among them, something odd, a small cloth-wrapped bundle tied with blue string. You shouldn't. You don't. But still, you wonder. A thud upstairs snaps your attention back to the job. Probably a dropped boot. Maybe something else. You exit quickly and descend toward the lower levels again, where fewer eyes and fewer mysteries await. Or so you think. As you round the corner to check the last noble chamber, Sir Reginald's, you see light under the door. Odd. He's usually asleep by now. You raise a hand to knock, but the door opens before you touch it, and standing there, barefoot, is a young woman in a noble nightdress. Definitely not Sir Reginald. You both freeze. Her face flushes. "Wrong room," she says far too quickly, and steps past you into the shadows, her silk hem trailing dust from the floor. She doesn't look back. You don't move. Inside, the fire is roaring. The pitcher on the table is knocked over, and there's a faint scent of spiced wine and something more human. Sweet, sour, unwashed. You tidy it quickly, mechanically, no questions, no thoughts. Not until you're back in the hallway again, and even then, your thoughts betray you. How many of these corridors hold stories no one speaks of? How many whispers walk beside your own footsteps? As you relight your rushlight and head toward the undercroft, your mind drifts. Back to the spilled stew, the missing spoon, the cloaked figure by the well, the voices behind the curtain. The nobles dream upstairs, but you carry all their secrets to bed. It starts with a single clang, deep and slow, like a bell struck underwater. You feel it more than hear it, rattling in your ribs. The sound vibrates through stone walls and up the marrow of your bones. One chime only. You freeze in the corridor. That was the night bell. It doesn't signal danger, not unless it rings 3 times. One ring is different. It means the castle has officially entered deep night, the time when all is supposed to be still, when noble heads rest easy and servant feet move softer still. It's also the time when rules begin to loosen, quietly, invisibly, when what's done is not spoken of, when orders are bent and small rebellions sprout in the corners like mould. You glance down at your hands, still sticky with soot from Sir Reginald's hearth. You wipe them on your apron and move on. The bell came from the central tower. That means the steward is awake, or the chaplain, or both. There's no formal duty assigned to this bell. No pull rope for servants to ring it. Only trusted hands are allowed. So when it rings, you listen. Closely. You pass a corridor you've already walked once tonight, and something feels different. A candle is out where it wasn't before. A curtain pulled half aside. A small trail of ash on the flagstones that wasn't there an hour ago. You're not the only one walking the castle tonight. Down the south wing, you pass a servant stair and glance up. A flicker of movement. Too large for a rat. Too fast for someone on patrol. You tighten your pace, not out of fear, but instinct. You arrive at the lower hall where a brazier smoulders. The embers hiss gently, and for once there's no one around. You sit for a second on the edge of a wooden crate, letting the heat soak into your skin. This is the hour the castle feels almost like a ship drifting at sea, adrift in sleep, rocked by soft winds and distant memories. You're about to rise when you hear a voice. Hey, it's Tom, the spit boy. He's crouched beside the doorway, eyes wide. Did you hear it? He whispers. You nod. The bell. He shakes his head. Not that. After. You frown. Tom leans closer. I was in the west corridor by the wall tapestries fixing the candle holder, and I heard, humming, a woman's voice, but soft like she was behind the wall. You exhale. That old story again. The west corridor is infamous among servants. They say one of the masons during the castle's construction was buried alive behind the stones, along with the noblewoman he loved, who was walled in to keep her from shaming the family. The tale changes depending on who's telling it. Sometimes it's a maid, sometimes it's a nun. Always there's humming at night. But you don't mock Tom, not tonight. Instead you ask, did you go look? He shakes his head violently. I'm not stupid, you smirk. No, just tired. He kicks your shin gently. You kick back. Then you both sit in silence. For a few moments, all you hear is the quiet pop of a coal splitting, the moan of wind past a shutter, and a strange metallic tapping far off, like someone dragging something down a corridor. You rise. Where are you going? Tom asks. You shrug. To see what that sound is. He watches you disappear into the dark like a ghost of your own. You follow the sound. It's faint, metal against stone, irregular and hollow. It comes and goes like breath in a chest that doesn't want to wake up. You step softly, rushlight in hand, through the narrow service corridor that loops behind the great hall. Your own footsteps feel too loud, even though you're barely touching the ground. There's no one here. And yet, the noise continues. You pass the old herb room. Someone left the door ajar. Inside, bundles of dried rosemary and thyme sway slightly, stirred by a draught that shouldn't exist. You don't stop. Not tonight. The corridor narrows again, and suddenly you're at the threshold of the chapel side wing, the oldest part of the castle, built when the walls were still half timber and superstition. You shouldn't be here. Not alone. Not at this hour. But the sound is louder now. Clink. Drag. Clink. You edge around a corner and then stop. Dead. There at the far end of the hallway is a figure, bent low, face hidden, dragging something along the flagstones. You freeze behind a pillar and hold your breath. The light from your rushlight barely reaches, but it catches the edge of something metallic. A chain. The figure moves slowly, steadily. Not like someone sneaking, more like someone bound. You should turn back. But curiosity, that dangerous little flame, keeps you still. The figure finally reaches the end of the hallway and disappears behind a thick curtain you didn't even know was there. Then, nothing. No more clinking. No footsteps. Just stillness. You wait. 1 breath. 2. 10. Then you exhale and back away, every muscle in your body taut with silence. You return through the kitchens, where a single lantern still burns over the door. Someone's left a bucket of potatoes out, already peeled. Strange. No one peels ahead. Too many spoil. You make a note to tell Cook. Or not. Maybe it's none of your business. You push through the swinging door into the scullery, where Lisbeth is crouched again, this time scrubbing a wooden bowl. She glances up. You look like you saw the ghost. You give her a look. Which one? She chuckles, tired, but real. You kneel beside her, pull a cloth from the soaking bucket, and start wiping the soot off your hands. It stings. The cut across your palm has split again. You ever heard chains dragging near the chapel? You ask casually. She pauses. You mean tonight, or in general? You blink. Either. She leans in. There's a story about a scribe who forged a letter for a nobleman, added a few lies, changed a few names. He got caught. They chained him to the wall in the chapel for a week. When they let him go, he couldn't write a word. Hands wouldn't stop shaking. He died a year later, alone, still twitching. You raise an eyebrow. And now? They say he drags his guilt around with him. Still can't write it down. You both fall silent. Eventually Lisbeth shrugs. Probably just the steward. He limps when he's tired. But neither of you believes that. You rise again, your legs aching more than ever, and glance at the great hall beyond the archway. It's dark now, but it'll need cleaning soon. The night bell has rung. The castle has slipped into its slowest heartbeat. And somewhere beyond these stones, something unseen still walks. You gather your tools, light another rushlight, and step into the gloom once more. If something truly haunts this place, it won't be the only one. There are 2 kinds of warmth in a medieval castle. The kind that burns your skin, and the kind you never quite reach. Tonight, you're chasing both. The steward's list says to check and carry hot coals to guest chambers 4 through 6. Sounds simple. It isn't. Because fire, like everything else here, is borrowed, stolen from one hearth and carried like treasure to another, glowing but fading fast. You head to the kitchen first, where the largest hearth in the castle still smoulders. The main fire was raked down after supper, but the embers underneath are red and rich, the kind that can light a fresh flame with just a whisper. The hearth itself is a soot-black cavern. Above it hangs the iron crane, where Cook usually suspends her cauldron like a mother with a too-heavy child. Tonight it's empty. You find the fire tongs and a small coal scuttle, really just a dented iron pot with a lid, and kneel before the fire. It takes precision. You must choose coals that are alive but not crumbling. You nudge the ashes with your boot, then use the tongs to fish out 3 of the biggest glowing pieces you can find. They hiss faintly as they hit the cold metal of the scuttle. A 4th one flares too bright, and you nearly drop it. You curse under your breath and adjust the lid. No one hears. Outside the kitchen, the air feels colder now by contrast. You clutch the scuttle with both hands and move quickly. If the coals go out, you'll have to start again, and Cook hates being woken twice. You pass the chapel hallway, where the stone is darker and the walls press in. You feel every draught. It steals into your sleeves, slips down your back, curls inside your knees. This castle wasn't built for comfort. It was built to hold heat, secrets, people. You reach the first guest chamber and tap the door twice. Servant signal. No answer. You slip inside. The room smells of damp wool and old bread. A fur-lined bed dominates one wall, and the fire has gone entirely cold. You kneel at the hearth, lift the scuttle, and gently tip a single coal onto the old ash. It sizzles. You blow. Once, twice. The red flares brighter. You feed it 2 more. 1 piece of birch bark. A whisper of breath. Flame. You smile to yourself. Outside, the second room is trickier. The guard posted nearby gives you a long stare as you pass. "Move in fire around," he says. You nod. He squints. "Be quick. Sir Theobald don't like strangers when he's dreaming." You say nothing and move faster. Theobald's known for shouting in his sleep, and for swinging without fully waking. You don't want to find out if he's armed. Inside, the fire is low, but not dead. You add a coal, stir gently, and let the warmth breathe back to life. As you leave, you catch your reflection in a brass pitcher. Face streaked with soot, lips chapped, eyes like half-buried coals themselves. You don't look long. Room 3 is empty. The hearth cold, but no linens on the bed. Strange. The chamber was supposed to be occupied. You step closer. On the writing desk, an empty goblet, a piece of torn parchment, and a pin. A lady's, silver with a blue enamel flower. The kind nobles wear to court. You don't touch it. You just light the fire, back away, and shut the door behind you. Some rooms burn for warmth, others to hide things. You carry the empty scuttle back toward the undercroft, your arms warm from the metal but your breath still clouding before you. The fires are relit. The rooms aglow again. But something about that third chamber won't leave your mind. The torn parchment, the silver pin, the missing occupant. You've learned not to ask questions in this castle, but tonight the silence feels heavier, like the halls are holding their breath. As you cross through the central corridor, you pass a shutter that won't quite close. The wind has pushed it open just enough to let in a slice of winter air, cold as a blade. You press it shut, then wedge a piece of cloth between the frame and stone. A small thing, but tonight's small things feel sharp. In the servant passage beyond the great hall you hear snoring, loud, theatrical and familiar. It's old Jory, the lamplighter. He always finishes early and always finds some warm niche to nap in. You spot him now, curled beneath the staircase, feet propped on a crate of turnips, cap over his eyes. You smile. The man could sleep through a siege. But just as you pass, he shifts suddenly and mutters, "Not the blue pin. Don't show her." Your smile fades. You stop. His eyes are still closed. Dreaming. You crouch beside him. "Jory," you whisper. Who shouldn't see it? He groans, half turns and says nothing more. You let him be. But your chest feels tight. The silver pin in the guest room, his muttering, that humming Tom swore he heard near the west corridor. Something's winding through the castle tonight, and it's not just fire and cold air. You head to the warming nook by the laundry. The coals here are meant to dry damp linens overnight, but it's also a good place to hide from the draught and thaw your fingers. You open the iron hatch and feed in the last of your coals. They flare, glow, then settle. As you warm your hands, the washerwoman Ellen enters, balancing a pile of half-dry tunics. She nods to you, drops the pile with a groan, and begins hanging them on the cords above the vent. "Third chamber's still empty," you say casually. She glances up. "Not surprised." You raise an eyebrow. Ellen snorts. "They say Lady Margaret's niece was meant to sleep there tonight. Came all the way from Warwick with her own mirror and 3 feather pillows. But when she stepped inside, she turned white as lard and demanded another room." "Why?" Ellen shrugs. "Said she felt watched. Said there was a voice, one that sounded like hers. but whispered from inside the hearth. You blink. Did anyone else hear it? Course not, Ellen says, wringing out a tunic. They moved her 2 floors up next to the lady's maid. She hasn't come down since supper. You watch the steam rise from the tunics. It coils like breath. I lit a fire in there, you murmur. Good, Ellen says. Maybe warmth will chase off whatever she heard. But you both know better. The stone remembers things. And sometimes, fire just makes the shadows dance. You leave the warming nook with coals on your hands and unease in your gut. It's nearing the deepest part of night now, the time when even the rats go still. As you round the corner toward the steward's hall, you pause beside a small window that overlooks the inner courtyard. There, barely visible in the moonlight, you see it. A cloaked figure, standing, still. Right beneath the shutter you sealed, staring up at your window. You step back so fast you nearly knock over a broom. When you look again, they're gone. Nothing but frost on stone and silence. You tell yourself it was nothing, that the night plays tricks, but your heart beats harder than it should. And somewhere in the castle, a fire hisses like it knows something you don't. The fire's warmth fades from your fingertips as you move deeper into the western wing, your rushlight casting long, stretching shadows across the flagstones. The quiet here feels different, not peaceful, but heavy, like something's listening. Your next task, according to the steward's list, is to check in on the guards at the western post and sweep the corridor before matins. That sounds simple, 2 jobs in one stretch of hallway. But this corridor is infamous among servants, especially at night. It runs along the outer wall of the oldest part of the keep, where the stones are thicker and darker than anywhere else. Some say they used older rock from the ruined Roman forts nearby, as if the ghosts came baked in. You head there anyway. The rushlight flickers as you round the corner and a blast of cold air extinguishes it with a soft pfft. Great. You fumble for flint and steel, striking in the dark, knuckles raw. After 5 tries, a spark catches. You light the rush again, just in time to see a smear on the wall. Something blackened, like soot but sticky. You don't touch it. Instead, you continue toward the guard post. There's a small alcove halfway down the hallway, barely wider than a broom closet, with a slit window overlooking the inner bailey. A guard is slumped there, chin to chest, mouth hanging open. You pause, watch. Then you see it, his chest rising, sleeping. You exhale. It's not unusual. Guards nap when they can, especially in the dead hours. But what's unusual is the small notebook resting on his lap. Not standard issue, not even bound, just folded parchment, loosely tied with string. Curiosity gets the better of you. You step closer, careful not to wake him, and tilt your head to read the open page. Scrawled in tight, uneven lines. Saw her again. At the 3rd chamber. Not flesh, not shadow. She looks like someone I knew. You blink. A gust of wind whistles through the corridor and the guard stirs. You step back instinctively. His eyes flicker open, just for a second, but long enough to see you. You nod. He nods back, groggy, no questions asked. You say, "Just checking the sweep." He grunts, shifts his weight, and returns to his hunched position. You continue on. Halfway down the corridor you see the tapestries, the ones Tom mentioned. They hang in faded folds, hunting scenes, strange beasts, a falcon stooping mid-flight. One edge flutters as if stirred by wind, but there's no breeze. You reach out, lift it gently. Behind is just stone. Of course, you let it fall and move on. At the end of the hallway is a small window bench, often used by tired footmen trying to steal a moment's rest. But tonight, it's empty, except for something glinting on the ledge. You pick it up. A ring. Iron. Too plain for a noble, too well made for a peasant. It's warm, as if recently held. You look around. No footsteps, no sound, just the soft hiss of your rushlight. You pocket the ring, not out of greed, but curiosity. You finish the corridor sweep with your broom mechanically now, dust into the corner, pick up a lone piece of straw, a dropped handkerchief, a thread from someone's hem. Then you pass by the tapestry again, and this time you hear it. A soft hum, barely more than a breath. Coming from behind the wall, you freeze. The hum is gentle, tuneless, like someone remembering a lullaby they haven't sung in years. It lasts only a few seconds, then vanishes. So suddenly you wonder if it was ever there at all. But you don't move. You just stand there, in the cold corridor with your broom dangling in one hand and your rushlight flickering against a tapestry that now feels alive. You've heard the stories. Everyone who works night shifts in this wing has. Some say a maid was walled in by mistake during construction. Others whisper it wasn't a mistake, that she overheard something meant for no ears but noble ones, and that she died screaming, or praying, or humming. You step back slowly, your pulse ticking in your throat. There's no reward for poking at castle memories. You return the broom to the cupboard near the guard alcove. The guard is asleep again, now snoring quietly. His notebook is gone. You don't ask questions. Instead, you slip back into the side corridor that leads toward the storage rooms near the cellar stairs. The walls here are uneven, half-patched from old repairs. One corner smells strongly of mildew and wet stone, a place where things are left to decay, forgotten. You pause and reach into your pocket. The ring, still warm. You roll it between your fingers. No markings, no jewel. Just a simple iron band. You glance up and notice something odd. One of the stones in the wall ahead is cleaner than the rest. Less dust, slightly misaligned. You take a step closer and press your palm against it. It shifts, just a fraction. Your stomach knots. You back away. No, not tonight. You turn and walk quickly back toward the servants' stair. As you climb, your calves scream from the effort. It's well past midnight now, the hour when aches settle in and your body starts plotting its quiet rebellion. At the top, you're met by the steward. He doesn't speak right away, just stands there blocking the narrow landing, lantern in hand. He looks at you, then at your apron, at the soot, at your hands, at your face. "Still lighting fires?" he asks, voice calm but cold. You nod. He tilts his head. "Then why were you near the West Wing tapestry?" You hesitate. "I saw your shadow," he adds. "Twice." You don't lie, not directly. "Heard something. Thought it might be a loose shutter." He stares at you. Too long. Then, at last, he nods. "There's no shutter in that corridor," he says softly. "If you hear it again, walk the other way." You don't reply. He steps aside, letting you pass. As you do, you catch a glimpse of something under his cloak, just the edge of parchment. Thin, folded, familiar. You descend the next staircase more quickly than you should, the soles of your shoes slapping softly on stone. You duck into the side passage near the main pantry, where Cook is muttering over a tub of soaking beans. She barely glances at you. "Hot water's gone cold again," she growls. "Take the pot to the scullery and boil it, then come back for more." You nod. The pot is heavy. You lift it with both hands, arms trembling, and as you pass the small mirror hanging by the pantry arch, an old cracked thing that belonged to Cook's mother, you pause. Because for just a breath, your reflection isn't yours. It's a face you've never seen, wearing your apron, holding your pot, and humming. The same tune from the wall. You blink, and it's gone. The mirror shows only you, tired, pale, mouth slightly open, eyes wide. You grip the pot tighter and walk away. Some fires warm the body. Some. They leave marks you can't wash off. You carry the heavy pot down the passage, every step sloshing cold water against the rim. Your arms ache from earlier, and now the iron handles are biting into your palms like punishment. But you don't set it down. If you stop moving, even for a moment, the cold will creep back in, and you'll start thinking again about that mirror, about that face, and thinking's dangerous tonight. You reach the scullery door and push it open with your shoulder. The room is thick with steam and the sharp scent of soapwort and lye. 2 chambermaids are already there, sleeves rolled, scrubbing at a mountain of linens with red, raw hands. They don't look up. You move to the brick hearth at the far end, where a blackened kettle sits empty over weak embers. You pour the water into it and feed the fire with some chopped kindling from the nearby bin. The steam begins to rise, and soon the room feels almost tolerably warm. One of the maids, Gilda, the older one, sneezes, wipes her nose on her sleeve and says without looking, "Don't let cook see you standing." You nod and crouch beside the fire, pretending to tend it while you give your arms a break. Your knees crack like old floorboards. The other maid, Bet, glances over. "You hear about the steward's book?" You lift an eyebrow. She lowers her voice. "He's been writing down everything. Names, times, who went where, even what people mutter in their sleep." Gilda snorts. "Wouldn't be the first to keep a little black list. That man has ears in every chimney." Bet continues. "Saw him talking to the guard from the West Post, the one who fell asleep. They were passing a paper between them." You keep your face neutral, but your fingers tighten slightly around the poker. Gilda leans toward you. "Careful if your name's in it. Once it's written, it's as good as branded on your skin." You nod once, get up, and move toward the back of the room. The linens hang limply from cords above, dripping water that taps against the stone in a constant rhythm. You pass by them toward the scullery shelves, where chamber pots are stacked in neat, miserable rows. You have another job to do here, something even less glamorous than stoking fires or carrying coal. You lift the lid on one pot, half full and still warm. You wrinkle your nose and carry it to the disposal trough, which runs with a trickle of grimy water. You empty the contents with a practiced flick and rinse the pot with vinegar and a curse. It's here, among the pots and stains and sour smells, that the stories come out. Bet says, "You ever notice how many maids quit after one night in Lady Edrith's chambers?" Gilda replies without missing a beat. "Maybe it's the mirrors." You glance at them. "What about the mirrors?" They exchange a look. Bet shrugs. "People say they reflect more than they show, that if you look too long, you see things you never did, and some things you wish you hadn't." Gilda adds, "One girl swore she saw herself aged 40 years, just for a second, dropped the candle and ran, never came back." You wipe down another pot, slower this time. The castle is full of ghosts, they say, but what if some of them aren't dead? What if they're living, right beside you, just stuck in cracks and corners, bound to duties no one dares write down? You set the last pot in its place and scrub your hands raw with the lye soap until the water runs pink. As you dry them, you hear a soft voice behind you. "Did you light the fire in the empty chamber?" You turn. It's Lisbeth. Her face pale, her lips trembling, eyes wide. You nod. She says, "Something's still in there." You and Lisbeth stand in silence, her words hanging in the air heavier than the stink of vinegar and lye. Something's still in there. You look at her, really look at her now. Her cheeks are blotchy, eyes rimmed red like she's been crying, or worse, seeing. She clutches her apron with both fists, twisting the fabric like it might hold her together. "What do you mean?" you ask softly. She swallows. "I went back, to the third chamber, the empty one. The fire you lit was still burning, but it wasn't right. It was too bright, too hot, and there was someone sitting at the writing desk." Your skin prickles. "Who?" She shakes her head. "I couldn't see clearly. The fire was behind them, but they were writing, fast, over and over. I knocked. Thought maybe it was the steward's doing, but no one turned. No sound." She looks at you then, her voice almost a whisper. "I ran." You believe her. You shouldn't. You never believe these things on shift. Belief gets you in trouble. But tonight, there's been too many flickers, too many reflections, too many voices humming behind the walls. You glance around the scullery. Bet is scrubbing a basin, pretending not to listen. Gilda is gone. You reach for your bundle of rushlights, now down to 3, and strike your flint with shaking fingers. Lisbeth watches you. "You're going back?" she asks. You nod. "I need to see if the fire's still burning." You don't say it aloud, but something's wrong with that chamber. The steward marked it occupied on his list. You saw the goblet, the torn parchment, the silver pin. You lit the fire with your own hands, and now you need to see if it was ever real. Lisbeth follows you without being asked. The castle feels different now. Not colder, just more aware. The walls hum with breath. The floor creaks even when you step soft. You pass through the central corridor and see a maid flinch as you pass. You're not sure if she's afraid of you, or something she just heard. You reach the third chamber. The door is shut. You'd left it ajar. Your hand hovers over the latch. Lisbeth grips your arm. You push. The door opens with a whisper. Inside, it's warm. The fire is roaring higher than it should be. Flames leap like dancers, too lively for a few coals and birch bark. The room glows orange like a forge, and the writing desk, empty. No figure, no parchment, no silver pin, just a faint scent of burnt ink. You step forward. Lisbeth stays in the doorway. You kneel by the hearth. It gives off no smoke. The logs are untouched, no ash, no embers, only flame. You reach out a hand. The heat doesn't sting, doesn't warm, it watches. You lower your hand. Lisbeth whispers, "Look." You follow her gaze to the mirror above the washstand. The glass is dark, reflecting only the fire. But slowly something else appears. Words, scratched into the surface from behind. Not etched. Emerging. One by one, shaky and slow. I remember. The flame flares. You grab Lisbeth's hand and back away, heart pounding. You don't shut the door. You don't douse the fire. You just leave. Back in the corridor, she gasps. Was it real? You nod, and then you lie. It was just the heat. You're tired. Because servants don't speak of ghosts. They clean them, feed them, tend to their fires and scrub their traces from the linens. But tonight you remember something Cook once said. The castle needs its servants, even the ones you can't see anymore. You leave the corridor behind like someone closing a book too heavy to carry, but the pages stick with you. Back in the Undercroft, you set your rushlight into a small sconce and let the shadows settle. You're behind on your tasks now, out of order. The steward won't care if you've been chasing ghosts or putting out fires that shouldn't burn. The castle still needs tending. You check the list hanging from the iron nail beside the storeroom. One scribbled word catches your eye. Nursery. You groan quietly. Not because it's far or hard, but because it's delicate. The nursery is near the lady's private wing, close enough that any sound, any creak or clatter, could send someone upstairs demanding to know who woke the baby. There's only one child in residence right now. A boy, not yet 2 years old. His father is away on campaign. His mother spends most of her time staring at the frost on her window. No one talks about the girl she lost last winter. You take the winding stair up toward the nursery, where the rush matting muffles your steps and the air smells like warm milk and lavender. You knock softly. No answer. Inside, the room is nearly dark. The fire has burned low, casting long shadows across the carved cradle near the wall. A nursemaid, Mara, sits in the rocking chair, motionless, her chin tilted down. For a moment, you think she's asleep. Then she speaks. He's coughing again. You step closer. The child is tucked beneath a fur blanket, cheeks flushed, breathing shallow. You hear it now, the dry barking cough that comes every few seconds, just enough to keep you wincing. Mara doesn't move. He started after second bell. I sent for a lemon, but no one came. You nod. You've seen it before. These cold nights press against little lungs like stone, and there's no physician on duty tonight. The castle relies on what the kitchen can spare and what the servants remember from their grandmothers. I'll fetch the cloth and salt, you whisper. Mara nods. You make your way to the still room, where herbs and dried fruits hang from the beams like shriveled talismans. You find a linen scrap, dip it into the brine jar and wring it out. The salt will warm against the skin and draw out the chill, so the theory goes. You also grab a pinch of dried thyme from the hook by the door and wrap it in a sachet. When you return, Mara hasn't moved. You kneel by the cradle and gently press the warm cloth to the child's chest, tucking the herb bundle just beneath his neck. He stirs but doesn't wake. Mara speaks again, voice hoarse. "I used to have a brother who coughed like this." You glance up. "He died on the road," she continues, "before we made it to the first manor. My mother carried him in a basket and pretended he was just asleep." You say nothing, just watch the fire. Mara exhales. "This one's got better luck." You nod, though you're not sure what makes her think so. The child coughs again, just once, then settles. You adjust the blanket and whisper, "There now, sleep while you can." As you rise to leave, you notice something on the windowsill. A small toy horse carved from walnut wood. You pick it up. Its legs are uneven. A child's carving, maybe, or a gift from someone who didn't know how to whittle. You place it beside the cradle and turn to go. As you reach the door, Mara finally looks up. "Would you stay a moment?" she asks, "just to be sure." You hesitate. Then you nod and sit beside the fire. Not because it's your duty, but because some nights, even ghosts need company. You stay. The rocking chair creaks slightly as you shift. The only sound besides the soft pop of the fire and the faint rattle in the child's chest. Mara hasn't moved since she asked you to sit, but her shoulders have dropped a little, as if your presence gave her permission to let go of the night's weight just for a moment. You don't speak, not because you have nothing to say, but because words feel too loud here. Some rooms demand silence. This is one of them. The candle beside the cradle gutters. You rise without a word, snuff it gently with your fingers, and place it into the dish beside the fire. The room sinks into deeper quiet. The kind only the middle of the night knows. That's when you hear it. A creak. Not from Mara, not from the cradle, from the ceiling. No, from above the ceiling. The nursery lies beneath the attic loft, a space no one uses anymore. Too drafty, too dusty, too full of old things no one wants to remember. You glance at Mara. She doesn't react. Maybe she didn't hear it, or maybe she's heard it too many times. You listen. Another creak, slow, like someone walking. The sound fades. You stay in your seat, but your mind begins drifting. Who would be in the loft at this hour? There's no storeroom up there, no guard post, no bell rope, just discarded trunks and splintered beams and supposedly a nest of bats so foul even the steward won't set foot inside. The child coughs again, wet and low. You glance at him. Still asleep. You lean forward, pick up the small wooden horse again. Its carving is even rougher than you thought. The head is barely shaped, but someone cared enough to try. You wonder who gave it to the boy. His mother? The missing father? Someone else? You turn it over in your hand. Carved into the underside, barely visible in the firelight, is a name. Joan. That's not the child's name, and not the mother's either. You glance at Mara. Her eyes are closed now, but not asleep. Just somewhere far off. You rise silently and set the horse back in place. As you head to the door, the air shifts, a change in pressure, a breath where there shouldn't be one. You pause, hand on the latch, and look back. The fire flares, just for a second, then settles again. Mara opens her eyes and says quietly, "It's always colder when she's near." You freeze. "She?" you ask. She doesn't answer, only turns her face toward the child and closes her eyes again. You leave. The corridor outside feels colder. You wrap your arms across your chest and descend the servant stair, each step echoing slightly longer than the last. You know it's past the third bell now, the hour when dreams start to sour, when even the bravest servants start muttering prayers they barely believe. You pass a shuttered window and pause. Outside, frost has crept across the glass in swirling vines. In the centre, someone has drawn a shape with their finger. Not a word, not a face. A horse. You exhale. Fog rises against the pane. You don't touch it. Just walk on. The castle has strange ways of remembering. and stranger ways of telling you that it remembers. You return to the undercroft where the brazier has burned low. The heat has almost left it. You stir the coals half-heartedly, but there's no point. This fire, like you, is nearly spent. Across the hall, Tom sleeps curled under a sackcloth, clutching a rag like it's treasure. He twitches slightly, then sighs. You lie down on the cold stone near the wall, your body too tired to care. As you close your eyes, you hear one last cough from above, then silence. And in that silence, you almost swear you hear hooves on the beams overhead. Not running, just walking. Slowly. Patiently. You wake before you mean to. Not from noise, but from stillness. A sudden, eerie pause where the castle holds its breath. No creaking, no wind, not even the drip of the laundry vent. The kind of silence that feels pressed down, like a lid on boiling water. Your joints complain as you sit up. The stone beneath you has imprinted itself into your spine. You stretch, then curse under your breath as your hip sends up a bolt of pain. You're too young to feel this old. Tom's still curled near the wall, snoring softly. Someone's tucked a bit of cloth under his head since you lay down. Probably Ellen. She has a soft spot for lost things. Rats, scullery boys, and once, a blind chicken that wandered into the herb room and stayed a week. You rub your eyes and glance at the tar slate hanging on the undercroft door. Your next job, cellar check, rat traps and salted meat. You sigh. Cellars mean stairs, and stairs mean knees. You gather your rushlight, strike it again, and set off toward the trapdoor that leads into the castle's belly. The air grows colder with every step, every breath tightening in your chest like a slowly drawn bowstring. The cellar door creaks as you open it. Of course it does. The staircase down is narrow, the steps worn smooth by generations of feet and spills. You descend slowly, letting the rushlight guide you. Down here, the walls sweat. You feel it immediately. Cool damp stone, beaded with condensation, laced with mildew. You've been here before. You hate being here alone. The castle's cellar is more than just a food store. It's a maze. Kegs of ale and vinegar stack beside crates of root vegetables. Smoked hams wrapped in linen, and sacks of flour marked with dates older than your mother's memories. You check the traps first. The steward has you lay them along the walls, baited with bits of hard cheese or bread crust. The rats here are clever, fat and fast, with eyes that glitter like black marbles. Some have been caught. One is still twitching. You dispatch it with your boot and mutter a quiet apology. It's not the rat's fault it lives in this place. Then you move on to the salted meat. You count the hams hanging from the ceiling hooks. 12, still wrapped, still white with salt bloom, but something's wrong. The 13th hook is swinging, empty. You frown. You're certain there were 13 yesterday. Ellen swears by it, said it was her birthday number. You step closer, holding the rushlight up to the rope. It's frayed, not chewed, not snapped, cut. The hair on the back of your neck rises. You scan the floor, a faint trail of something, drag marks in the dust. Leading toward the far end of the cellar, where no meat should be kept, you follow. The drag trail curves behind a stack of wine barrels, ends near a wall that smells of lye and salt. There's no meat, no rat, just a gap between stones, a narrow one, big enough to squeeze through if someone really wanted to. You kneel, hold your rushlight to the opening, and see darkness deeper than anything you've seen tonight. Something shifts inside. You don't wait. You rise fast, too fast, your head cracking against the corner of a low beam. Pain spikes through your skull. You stagger back, vision swimming, hand against your temple. Behind you, the swinging hook creaks once, twice. You don't look again. You run up the cellar stairs 2 at a time, pulse hammering, ears ringing louder than the night bell ever could. You don't stop until you've cleared the cellar door and latched it behind you. Your breath clouds in the air as you lean against the wall, heart thudding like it's trying to outrun your ribcage. You press your fingers to your temple where you struck the beam, warm and sticky. Great. You've bled for the castle again, and not one person will thank you. The corridor outside the cellar is quiet. Too quiet. Your rushlight's flicker dances on the walls, making every corner pulse with movement. You glance back at the door, still closed, but that swinging hook, the missing ham, that dark, unnatural silence beyond the wall. It wasn't just a rat dragging supper through a gap. Someone was there, or something, and someone cut that rope. You push away from the wall, still dizzy, and stumble down the passage toward the kitchen. You need light, people, something warm, something normal. But when you push through the kitchen door, the room is empty. No cook, no stewards, no scullery girl slapping dough or muttering about beetroot stains. Just the echo of your own breathing and the crackle of an unattended fire. You scan the room. Everything is in place, except a single ladle swings from a hook above the hearth, slowly, gently, like someone passed beneath it seconds ago. You don't call out. Not yet. You cross the room and check the back door, still bolted. No muddy footprints, no wind, no reason for anything to move. Unless it moved itself. You shake your head. No. You're overtired, bruised, bleeding. You open the drying cupboard to retrieve a clean rag. The smell of herbs and old bread wafts out, comforting in its staleness. You tear a strip of linen and dab at your forehead. It stings. Behind you, the ladle thuds against the wall, its arc spent. You jump anyway. Stop it, you whisper. Not sure whether you're speaking to the castle or yourself. You finish bandaging the cut and throw the bloodied strip into the hearth. It sizzles and smokes, curling in on itself like an accusation. That's when you hear it. Again. Click. A soft sound. Not like a door. More like a ledger closing. You turn. The sound came from the hallway leading to the steward's quarters, a place you never go unless summoned. But tonight, you walk toward it. The corridor is short, lined with hanging cloaks and bundles of waxed paper for wrapping cured meat. Halfway down you spot it, a parchment, fallen or discarded, resting neatly on the ground. You pick it up. One name written across it, in the steward's tight hand. Yours. Beneath it, a single word. Watched. You crumple the paper without thinking and shove it into your apron. A noise behind you. You whirl. Nothing. But when you turn back, the cloaks along the wall sway gently. All of them. Left to right. Like they've just been brushed aside. You step backward, slowly, carefully, until you reach the main corridor. You need air. You head to the laundry vent, where the warm air from the undercroft sometimes leaks into the outer courtyard wall. It's quiet there, safe-ish, but when you arrive, someone's beaten you to it. Lisbeth, curled in a ball, weeping softly into her apron. You kneel beside her. What happened? She lifts her face. I went back, she sobs. I had to see it again. You know what she means before she says it. The fire was out, she whispers, but the writing's still there. You say nothing, she adds. It said a new word. You swallow. What? She closes her eyes. Yours. Your hand brushes the steward's note in your apron pocket. Watched. The castle is no longer just whispering. It's naming names. You and Lisbeth sit together in the half-warm vent corridor, backs pressed to stone, knees drawn to chests and eyes darting toward every flick of torchlight like startled birds. No one speaks. Because how do you talk about walls that write back? About fires that know your name? Eventually she breaks the silence. What do we do? You wish you had an answer. Instead, you say, we work. Because that's what servants do, even when the castle begins to bleed its secrets into your apron pocket, even when your name appears on parchment written in someone else's hand, even when it knows you know. You rise, brush the grit off your skirt and offer Lisbeth a hand. She takes it. You both return to the main hall. It's the time of night when the castle changes temperature, shifting from damp cold to dry chill, like a sick body giving up its fever. That means one thing. The Great Hall is ready to be cleaned, and nothing makes you feel more small and unseen than scrubbing where nobles feasted. You push open the double doors, what greets you as the aftermath of indulgence. Chicken bones under benches, a half-eaten fig tart crushed into a boot print, a wine stain the size of your forearm already sinking into the rushes. Someone knocked over a candlestick and the tallow hardened mid-drip, frozen like a pale snake on the stones. You glance at Lisbeth. She doesn't need instruction. She disappears toward the scullery for buckets and cloth. You begin collecting the goblets. Most are silver, all are tarnished. You stack them carefully on a tray, even though your hands shake slightly. It isn't the wine or the grease, it's what the steward said. There's no shutter in that corridor. You don't want to believe he meant what he said. You don't want to believe he knew what you saw. You kneel by the long table, scrubbing at a dried smear of goose fat, when something unusual catches your eye. A servant ledger tucked beneath a bench. Just a few pages bound with a string. You open it, curious. Inside, a list of names. You recognise a few: Gilda, Tom, Bet. But some are crossed out. Next to each crossed out name is a note. Dismissed, transferred, unknown. And next to one, witnessed, burned. You close the book, too fast. And when you look up, the steward is standing on the far side of the hall, watching, just watching. You rise slowly, holding the ledger loosely in your hand. He walks toward you, each step measured. You expect him to demand it, to shout, to snatch it. He does none of those. He stops just short of you, eyes flicking to the open page. Best not carry too many names, he says softly. The castle already remembers enough. He turns and walks away. You're not sure how long you stand there. Lisbeth returns with the water buckets and finds you still clutching the ledger. Is that? You shake your head. Nothing. You tuck it into the coals of the great hearth and watch the pages blacken, curl and disappear. One name fewer now, but the castle, it doesn't forget. You scrub the wine from the stones until your fingers wrinkle and your knees go numb. By the time you and Lisbeth finish, the hall looks presentable again. Not perfect, nothing in this place is, but clean enough that a noble might mistake it for untouched. As you gather your cloths, something odd catches your eye again. On the high table, where only nobles sit, someone has etched a shape into the wood. Not new, old, faded. A small ring, with a name inside. Joan. You touch the carving just for a moment. The wood is warm. You draw your hand back from the carving as though it burned you, though the wood beneath your fingers felt more like skin than timber. Warm, soft at the edges, pulsing with something that has no business pulsing. You glance over your shoulder. No one else saw. Lisbeth is busy wringing out a cloth by the fireplace, humming something low and mournful. The same tune you heard behind the tapestry, the same one you heard whispered in the nursery. You don't mention it. You just gather the cleaning cloths, throw them into the water bucket and force your legs to move toward the side door. Lisbeth follows. Back in the service corridor you both move silently. The weight of what you've seen, what you keep seeing, has pressed the conversation flat. The steward's ledger, the etched name, the ring, the voice. And then, just when your thoughts begin to fray from exhaustion, Lisbeth whispers, "The silver is missing." You blink. What silver? In the laundry. She stops walking and turns toward you, her voice tight. The spoon. The one with the twist handle. It's not in the pile anymore, you sigh. Maybe it was returned to the kitchen? She shakes her head. I checked, and someone took my cloth. The blue one. I folded it with the laundry last night, and now it's gone. You pause. One spoon, one cloth. Small things, but tonight everything small carries weight. You both reach the laundry room together, where the smell of soap and damp stone hits your nose like a slap. Ellen's not here. Probably off grabbing another pile of wet tunics from the scullery. That gives you time. You scan the drying lines. Nothing blue. The baskets. Nothing twisted in silver. You kneel beside the wringer, where lint and rags often get caught, and run your hand along the edge. Your fingers close on something damp. You pull it out. Lisbeth's cloth. But it's not just wet. It's stained. Red. Not the red of wine or beetroot or even blood. A dull, brownish red that smells faintly metallic. Old. Like rust. Lisbeth breathes in sharply. That wasn't there yesterday. You nod slowly. I believe you. There's a soft thud behind you. You both spin. One of the laundry baskets has tipped over, spilling socks and torn hose across the flagstones. But there's something else among the cloth. Something round and gleaming. A silver spoon with a twisted handle. You step forward and pick it up. The end is warped, as though it had been held in fire or gripped far too tightly by something that wasn't human. You both stand there for a long moment, the cloth in one hand, the spoon in the other, your ears tuned to every groan of wood and sigh of stone. Then, from the wall behind the drying lines, a sound, soft at first, like fingers brushing fabric, then louder, a whisper. Returned. You freeze. Lisbeth grabs your arm. Let's go. You nod. But before you leave, you place the cloth and the spoon back into the laundry bin, carefully, respectfully, as if returning something to a grave. You don't know who or what took them, but clearly it noticed they were missing. As you close the laundry room door, you glance once more at the stone behind the drying line. There's no seam, no gap, no doorway, and yet something lives there, or passes through. You and Lisbeth don't speak again until you're back in the undercroft. She sits down hard beside Tom, who's still sleeping, now snoring louder than ever. You lean against the opposite wall, body aching, hands still tingling. Returned. The word echoes like a step on cold tile. The castle keeps score, and tonight someone returned what was stolen, but you can't help but wonder, what else is still missing? The castle never announces when it slips past midnight into the final stretch before dawn. It doesn't ring a bell or send a servant with a candle, but you feel it, in your joints, in the stillness, in the way even the ghosts seem to grow tired. You're almost there. Almost. Which means it's time for laundry. Again. Not the fresh linens. Not the bedsheets from noble chambers with their embroidered crests and faint perfume. No, those come later in daylight when everything is scrubbed under supervision and boiled with judgment. This round is for the night things, the cloth soaked with blood or sweat, the rags used to swaddle sick children, the tunics worn by guards who got into something they shouldn't. You head toward the deep end of the scullery where the washtub sits like a waiting mouth. It's stone-lined, half full of dark water that no one's bothered to empty since the start of the shift. Ellen once called it the castle's second stomach. You believe it. Beside the tub is the heap of laundry, a pile of crumpled cloth, some stiff with salt and others still damp from bodies that had worn them too long. You kneel beside it, sleeves already rolled. Your hands go numb almost instantly as they plunge into the water. It's always this cold, not freezing, just ancient, like it came from deep beneath the walls, and maybe it did. You start with the cloths first, scrubbing out stains you try not to identify. A patch of dried something that might be wine, might be bile. A smudge that looks like soot until it turns your water red. You scrub harder. Footsteps echo behind you. You look up. Lisbeth again. Pale. Silent. But this time, her arms are full of garments. Tunics, undershirts, a pair of hose with a ripped heel. She says nothing, just dumps them beside the tub and kneels to help. You don't ask where she got them. She doesn't ask why your hands are shaking. For a while, the only sounds are water, cloth, breath. Until she says quietly, "This one's not ours." You glance over. She's holding a linen undershirt. Plain. But too fine for a servant. Not fine enough for a lord. It's soaked through. And the collar bears an unfamiliar mark. 3 stitched lines crossed like a brand. You take it. There's no blood, just salt, like it had been worn by someone sweating through a fever, or weeping. You lift it to your face and sniff. Ash. And rosewater? Before you can say anything, a wet slap echoes across the tub. A tunic, fallen in by itself. You both flinch. You fish it out quickly and wring it dry, pretending your heart isn't beating in your ears. Lisbeth whispers, "What if the castle's giving things back?" You glance at her. She's staring into the water like it might show her something. "Or asking us to finish what others started," she adds. You both go still. From the far corner of the room comes a low creak. You turn. It's the laundry press, closed tight with iron clasps. Nothing inside it tonight. You checked earlier, but now it's rocking, just slightly. A breath. You rise slowly, water dripping from your hands, and cross the room. You place your palm on the lid. Warm. You lift it. Inside? Nothing. Just the faint scent of lavender and ink. You shut it. Hard. Behind you, Lisbeth is folding the undershirt, the one with the brand. "I think," she says slowly, "we're washing things that were never ours to clean." You don't reply, because you're starting to wonder, what happens when you scrub something clean that was meant to stay stained? You and Lisbeth hang the damp clothes over the iron rods above the coals, letting them drip onto the cracked stone floor below. The water puddles steaming faintly, each drop echoing louder than it should in the otherwise silent scullery. Neither of you speaks, because some questions don't want answers, because maybe the castle does want to return things, but not for your benefit. You wipe your hands on your apron, now damp and useless. The air in the room has grown thick, not just with steam, but with something older, like the breath of all the servants who came before you, still hanging there, too tired to leave. You move to the supply shelf to fetch a fresh bar of soap when you notice something odd. One of the wooden washboards is missing. There were always 4, now 3. You glance at Lisbeth, who's still folding the odd linen shirt with the stitched mark. "Did someone take a board?" you ask. She frowns. "No one's been here but us." You scan the room again. The bucket of lye is untouched. The soap basket is undisturbed. Even the broom leans in the same crooked position it always does. But the board is gone. You crouch beside the tub and peer underneath, and you see it. The missing washboard, propped upright, inside the tub, and beside it, floating just below the surface of the blackened water, a cloth. Not one you or Lisbeth brought. You reach for it slowly. Your fingers close around the fabric. It's heavy, soaked through, and stiff with something that doesn't feel like soap or salt. You lift it into the firelight, a servant's apron, but old, yellowed, the hem frayed like mouse-chewed parchment, the ties barely clinging to the waist. You dismiss it as misplaced, some rag from years ago finally dislodged, until you see the embroidery. On the corner, stitched in clumsy, loving thread, Joan. Lisbeth gasps behind you. "It's hers," she says. You stare down at the apron. Water drips from your fingers, splashing onto your boots. It shouldn't be here. You've scrubbed in this room for months. Ellen's worked this scullery for years. No one's ever found this. No one's ever spoken of it. But you know what it means. Joan wasn't a myth. She was a servant, and the castle kept her. You don't know how, or why, or where, but it held onto her apron like a memory, or a promise. You fold it carefully, reverently, as if the cloth might bruise. Then you tuck it into the lowest drawer of the supply shelf, the one with the loose handle no one uses, and close it gently. Lisbeth kneels beside the tub, staring into the water. She tried to wash something, she says. What? She looks up. Maybe something she saw, or something they made her carry. You shiver, because you've carried things tonight too, parchments, names, fire, secrets, and now this. You rise and gather the other damp linens. It's time to hang them. It's what servants do, even when the fabric whispers, even when the walls sweat ink, even when your name shows up in places you never wrote it. You hang the final tunic on the line. It drips once, twice, then stops, and from the hearth behind you, a single coal pops. You turn. There, in the ashes, scrawled faintly with something that looks like soot, and maybe something darker. She remembers. You don't scream. You just pick up your pail and say to Lisbeth, Let's check the east wing windows before they start rattling. And she nods, like that's the most normal request in the world. Because it is. Because this is what servants do, even when the castle speaks back. The east wing of the castle is colder than the rest. Not because of the stone or the wind, but because the fireplaces here are mostly ornamental. Grand marble jaws that gape wide in noble chambers but are never lit. These rooms are for guests who come and go, for minor barons and whispering wives, for court scribes who stay just long enough to make everyone nervous. Tonight, though, the east wing is quiet. You and Lisbeth walk side by side carrying your tools, a lantern, a length of cloth to seal cracked panes, and a little tin of wax to fill window gaps. The steward's list says, check east-facing shutters for rattles, high wind expected before dawn. Sounds dull. But nothing about tonight has been dull so far. You reach the first room, empty, window latch secure. The second has a draught, so you stuff the frame with the cloth and mark the job complete. The third room makes you stop. The door is ajar, just slightly. You glance at Lisbeth, she frowns. This was latched earlier. You push it open. Inside, the room is untouched. No fire, no candle. But the air feels occupied. The bed is made. The pitcher is full. But the chair in the corner, the one beside the writing desk, has been turned to face the window. You walk toward it slowly, shoes silent on the rush-covered floor. Resting on the desk is a book. Open. Not parchment, not servant scrawl. A bound book with worn corners, the kind that belongs to scholars or clergy. You bend closer. No words, just blank pages. Hundreds of them. You flip through. Every sheet clean, unsullied, until the very last. At the bottom, written in delicate hand, so faint it looks like shadow. I tried to forget. You close the book and back away. Lisbeth doesn't ask what you saw. She just points to the window. The glass is cracked in the corner, frost creeping in delicate veins across the pane. A gust of wind makes it rattle slightly. Normal, ordinary. But you know better now than to trust the ordinary. You patch the crack with a smear of wax and a strip of cloth, then turn the chair back toward the desk. Something about its position, facing the window like it had been watching for something, sets your teeth on edge. You both move on. Room 4 is worse. The fireplace has a thin trail of soot up the wall, like something burned too long or flared too fast. The ashes are still warm, but no one has stayed here in 3 nights. The bed is untouched, the curtains drawn. Lisbeth kneels by the hearth. There's wax here, she whispers, dripped on the stones. You kneel too and see it. 5 small drops in a curve, like from a candle carried in a trembling hand. Then you spot the strange part. A circle, drawn in the ash. Faint, not decorative, ritual. You glance at each other. We should go, she says. You nod. But as you rise, something clicks beneath your boot. You reach down and find it. A small brooch. Silver. Tarnished. In the shape of a ring of thorns. On the back, initials. JH. You've never heard of a guest with those initials. You slip the brooch into your pocket. Maybe the steward will know. Or maybe you'll forget. Like someone else tried to. You finish the rest of the wing in silence, patching shutters, marking frames, and leaving behind warmth where there was none. But as you close the last door behind you, Lisbeth stops. She points at the floor. You kneel to look. In the dust, faint but deliberate, are boot prints. 2 pairs, one yours, one walking beside you. Room to room, all along the east wing, you stare at the footprints. They're not recent, just clear enough to know they were never yours. The toes point in the same direction as yours, step for step, like someone walking a pace behind you all along the eastern hall. But you never heard anything, never saw anyone. Lisbeth crouches beside you. She traces one of the prints with her finger. They're shallow, she murmurs, not heavy like a guard's, and they don't veer, just follow. You both stand. The hall stretches behind you, torches fluttering in their brackets. No movement, no sound. But now, every creak in the beams feels watched. You turn back toward the main corridor, putting distance between you and the eastern rooms, fast but quiet. You don't speak until the cold from those empty chambers fades behind you. Only then does Lisbeth whisper, "JH." You glance at her. "The brooch," she says. "What if it was Joan?" You shake your head. Joan was a kitchen maid. No one gave her silver. She might have found it, Lisbeth says, or taken it. Or it was left for her, you say, before you can stop yourself. The thought lingers between you. Back in the Undercroft, Ellen is awake again, folding tunics with sleepy focus. She looks up as you return. "Anything broken?" You shake your head. She frowns at Lisbeth. "You look like you saw the Salt Devil." "Just the East Wing," Lisbeth says flatly. Ellen sighs. "That place needs bricking shut." You want to ask her about Joan, about the initials, about the book with its empty pages and the chair turned toward the window like it was waiting for something, or someone to come back. But instead you ask, "Did you know anyone with the initials JH?" Ellen pauses, then shrugs. "Too many to count. Half the scullery boys are named John something," you nod. "But that brooch wasn't a scullery boy's." You pull it from your pocket and place it gently on the table near the folded tunics. Ellen steps closer, squinting. "Where do you find that?" "East Wing." She picks it up carefully, turns it over in her hand. "I've seen this," she says slowly. "Long time ago." "Who wore it?" She shrugs again. "Didn't belong to anyone here. One of the guests, maybe. The ones that came during the summer siege, before your time." She places the brooch back down, but not before tracing her thumb over the thorns. The story was, someone tried to sneak out during the night, used the servant stairs, never made it to the gate. The guards swore they never saw her. No record of departure. But we found this, she pauses, along with a single footprint, in the ash by the gate. Just one. The same chill from the eastern wing wraps around your shoulders again. "Was it Joan?" Lisbeth asks softly. Ellen hesitates. Then, "Joan vanished earlier that month." You all go quiet. Eventually Ellen claps her hands and says briskly, "Enough of that. There's soup to stir and pans to scrub. Ghosts don't clean up after themselves." But you notice she doesn't touch the brooch again. Lisbeth goes to fetch water. You remain, staring at the silver thorns. You realise you haven't seen the steward in over an hour. He's usually prowling by now, checking ledgers, inspecting cloth corners for dust. You turn to Ellen. "Have you seen the steward?" She shakes her head. "Said he was going to review the ledger room. Took the second key." You pause. "There's only one key." Ellen frowns. "Well, then he took yours." "That's not possible. You wear yours on a cord around your neck. You reach for it. It's gone. And so is your ledger. The one where you scratch down every oddity, every whisper, every name. You run to the hook where you always leave your cloak. Nothing. Not even footprints. But you notice something else. On the wall above the cloak hook, someone has written in ash, "We keep the names." You stare at the message. "We keep the names." The letters are drawn in rough strokes, like a child's finger had traced them with soot. But there's nothing playful about them. They look final. Not like a warning, like a record. As though the wall itself is part of the ledger now. You swallow hard. Behind you, Lisbeth returns with a water bucket and stops short when she sees your face. Then she sees the writing. She doesn't speak. Ellen doesn't even look up. You reach for the space beneath your collar again, hoping you were wrong, that maybe the key had slipped inside your tunic. But no. The leather cord is still there, snapped clean through. You take a slow breath. The steward has the second key, but someone else now has the first. You push through the Undercroft side corridor toward the servant stair. Your legs feel like they're filled with river stones. Every instinct says, sleep. Curl up in the laundry nook and let the castle move around you until dawn. But the castle is moving through you now, and if you don't keep up, it will leave you behind. You reach the stair and begin climbing. This time, you don't carry a rushlight. You don't want to see what might be trailing you. At the top is the passage to the ledger room. Small, windowless, locked to all but stewards. A place of records. logs of bread baked, wine poured, boots polished, guests received. A place where the castle pretends to run on logic. You reach the door. It's open. You pause in the doorway. Inside, the steward stands alone, his back to you, flipping slowly through the master ledger by candlelight. His silhouette glows gold and black against the parchment. He doesn't turn. "I've been expecting you," he says. Your voice comes out hoarse. "You have my key." He nods once, still not facing you. "And my book," you add. Finally he turns. His face is tired, paler than before, lips tight. But his eyes look like someone who's read something he shouldn't have. "I only borrowed it," he says softly, "to confirm what I feared." He lifts your notebook. "I didn't believe it, you know. Not at first. The names, the echoes, the fires that burned too long. I thought it was grief, or rot, or imagination." He sets the book down. But the castle remembers. You step inside slowly. "Joan?" He nods. She wasn't just a name. She was a message. A warning stitched into fabric, carved into beams, etched into stone where no one would think to look. He opens the master ledger and points. There, written in a column of dismissed staff from 6 winters ago, is her name, Joan Halvers. Beside it, in red ink, transferred. Then, scratched out. Replaced with disappeared. Then that too faintly crossed. Now, written over both, returned. You step back. "That wasn't there before," he nods. "No, and yet, here it is." The candle beside him flutters. You look down at your own name near the bottom of the current roster. A smear of black now runs through it. Not a cross-out, a shadow. You feel Lisbeth behind you. She's staring at the page. Her name too is marked. You whisper, "What does it mean?" The steward closes the ledger with a soft thud. "It means we're being watched, not by nobles, not by guards." He glances at the ceiling, but by the castle itself. For the first time you notice his hands are shaking. "I've heard things in these walls," he says. "Lately more than ever. Not voices, not screams, names." He steps toward you and presses your notebook into your hands. "Keep it close," he says. "Write nothing down unless you're willing to give it away." You nod. But before you leave, your eyes drift to the corner of the room. A second ledger sits on the desk, smaller, older, covered in dust. You open it. Inside are just 3 names. Joan Halvers, Lisbeth M. And now, freshly written, yours. You stare at your name on the page, ink still glistening like a half-healed wound. You didn't write it. The steward didn't write it. And yet, it's here, in your own script. Lisbeth steps closer. Her breath catches when she sees hers there too. "I never touched this book," she whispers. You look up at the steward, who is pale now, paler than before, like the candlelight is draining him. "I thought it was only record-keeping," he murmurs. "Inventory, staff logs, rotations." He glances at the small ledger with something close to fear, but it writes back. You slowly close the book and feel the weight of it settle in your hands. It feels too heavy for its size, like it's holding more than names, like it's storing choices, witnesses, or debts. A floorboard creaks behind you. The steward freezes. So does Lisbeth. You all turn. Nothing in the hallway. But on the far wall of the ledger room a new mark is appearing. Not drawn by hand, not carved. It rises. At first it looks like a stain, but then it shapes into lines, letters, a name. Tom. You whisper, "He's still asleep in the undercroft." The steward doesn't answer. You're already moving. You snatch up the little ledger, tuck it into your apron and run. The castle feels tighter now. The halls narrower. The air thicker, as if the walls are inhaling around you. Down the stair. Past the laundry. Through the scullery. Each shadow looks too still. You burst into the undercroft. Tom is gone. His sackcloth is still crumpled where he slept, still warm when you press your hand to it, but he is not there. You turn in slow circles, scanning every alcove, every dark corner. Nothing. Lisbeth arrives behind you, panting. No, he was here. You nod. He was. You check the side passages, the storage cubbies, the wine racks. Nothing. No sign of struggle, no sound, not even a breath of air moving. You find his rag doll, tied together with twine and a button for an eye, tucked between the water barrel and the wall, dropped, forgotten, or left. He wouldn't go far, Lisbeth says, trying to sound certain. But she doesn't believe it. Neither do you. You bring the ledger out again. 3 names are still there. Joan Halvers, Lisbeth M. Yours. But now, Tom, and beneath it, in smaller letters, still warm. Lisbeth stumbles back. You shut the book. You've seen enough. The steward arrives last, walking slow, as if his feet carry the weight of things he never meant to hold. He looks at Tom's rag doll and says nothing, just kneels beside it. Finally he stands. I thought we could manage it, he says quietly. Keep the names, track the strange, pay attention. He rubs his forehead. But I was wrong. You whisper, what does the castle want? He stares at the floor. I don't know. Then, but it knows who we are. The 3 of you look at each other, marked, named, still present, for now. A gust of wind slips through the corridor. Odd. No doors are open, no windows unlatched, and then from somewhere deep in the stone, a sound. Drip. Just one. Then silence. Then again. Drip. And again. You trace it to the corner. The same one where Joan's apron was found. The same stones behind the drying line. The wall is weeping. A dark, thin line of liquid creeps down from between the stones. Not water. Not wine, ink, the castle is writing. Again, you kneel beside the wall and watch the ink trail descend. It's not fast, not dramatic. Just a slow, persistent weep. Like the castle is crying out something it can't speak aloud. The black line threads down over rough stone, pooling quietly at the base, sinking into the grout like it's been absorbed before. Many times. You dip your finger in the ink. It's cool, not sticky. But it stains instantly. Lisbeth crouches beside you. It's the same as the ledger ink, she says, voice flat. Even smells like it. A little bitter, like iron and candle soot. You nod, staring at your fingertip. Then you see it. Letters. Small ones, scratched faintly into the stone behind the ink, hidden until the dark liquid outlined them. Not carved, etched. Like someone had used the corner of a broken spoon or the blunt tip of a bone needle. You lean in closer. 4 letters, 1 name, Mira. You don't know that name. Neither does Lisbeth. But Ellen does. When you bring her to the wall, she turns grey. She was a laundress, before me. Quiet girl. Real good with starching collars and never once burned linen. What happened to her, you ask? She had an accident, Ellen says. Or so we were told. You wait. She went into the bathhouse one night, she continues, back when we still had firewood for hot soaks, steam rising all the way to the rafters. She went in alone, like she always did after a long shift. But she never came out. Drowned? Ellen shakes her head. The water wasn't deep enough, she was just gone. Only her shift left behind, neatly folded, like someone had undressed her. Lisbeth shudders. You look at the wall again. The ink has begun to dry, crusting at the edges like dried blood. The name is fading now, sinking back into the rock. Mira. Gone again. How many names are in the walls? Lisbeth whispers. Too many, Ellen answers without hesitation. You wonder how many more you'll find if you keep looking. But another thought creeps up instead. How many walls are already writing names you haven't seen? Back in the sleeping quarters, someone screams. You and Lisbeth bolt down the hallway, nearly tripping on your hems. It's not a scream of pain, but panic, surprise, fear. The younger chambermaid, Inez, is standing by the firewood alcove, white as milk, holding her apron to her chest. You follow her shaking finger to the firewood pile. A boot sticks out, just one. You rush forward and start pulling logs. It's not Tom, it's a man, middle-aged, dust on his shoulders, clean shoes, the steward, or what's left of him. His eyes are open, mouth ajar, no wounds, no bruises, but his hand is ink black. Clutched tightly around something, you pry it open, a slip of parchment, one word. Ode. You turn it over. Your notebook is missing again. No one saw who took it. Lisbeth crouches beside the steward's body, trying not to cry. He said the castle was keeping track. You nod, staring at the note. It's not a threat. It's an accounting, a tally of the debt. You reach for your own name in the little ledger. Still there. But beside it, something new. Interest. Lisbeth checks hers. It now reads, paid. She exhales sharply. You're next, she says, and you know it's true. You don't sleep. You can't. Instead, you find yourself pacing the narrow scullery corridor long after even the spiders have gone still. You've tucked the little ledger into the waistband of your apron, close enough to feel its weight every time you move, like a second heart, a darker one. The steward's body is gone now. You don't know who moved it, or when. One moment it was there, and in the next someone had fetched a cloak to cover him, and then the cloak was there, folded neatly, but the body was not. Nobody speaks of it. Ellen offers you a cup of cider in a cracked wooden mug. You take it with shaking hands. She sits beside you, not saying much. That's Ellen's way. Her comfort comes in shared silence. But Lisbeth doesn't stay silent. She paid, she says again, voice distant. That's what it said. Paid. You nod. But for what? Lisbeth doesn't answer. She doesn't have to. You both know. Joan, Mira, Tom, now the steward. They all vanished after being entered into the little ledger. And now Lisbeth's entry says paid. She's next. Or rather, was. The ink claimed her name, then cleared her debt. Somehow. You whisper, maybe it's not about punishment. Lisbeth glances sideways. What then? Balance. Maybe it isn't vengeance. Maybe the castle, whatever force moves within it, isn't cruel so much as indifferent. Tallying names like sums on a page, matching weights, keeping the scales even. A boot for a boot, a name for a name, but then why mark you? You haven't done anything. Not really. You've scrubbed, you've served, you've held your tongue, except you wrote. You chronicled what you saw, you kept notes, you asked questions, and the castle doesn't like questions. Suddenly a distant sound, a thud, then a creak. Ellen stands, face alert. That came from the tapestry room. You all hurry down the passage past the servant stairs into the long gallery where ancient woolen tapestries hang like sagging giants. The room is dark, but the moonlight through the arrow slits casts pale bars across the stone, and one tapestry is moving, just slightly. A ripple, like breath. You step forward and lift it. Behind it, another door. You've never seen it before. No handle, no hinges, just stone shaped like a doorway, with a small keyhole. Lisbeth reaches into her apron. She's holding the broken key. She looks at you. You nod. She presses the half key into the lock. It fits. There's a pause, a soft click. Then, nothing. No open, no glow. Just stillness. And a sound behind you. You turn. The other tapestries are swaying now. All of them. The air grows thicker, like you're standing inside a breath held too long. Then, writing. On the wall behind the door, new, fresh. It says, the balance has shifted. Ellen whispers, what does it mean? The wall answers. Another line appears beneath the first. Too many names, too few returned. And a third, debt is due. The door begins to hum. You all step back. Your name flashes through your mind again. In the ledger, in the walls, in the ink. Still there. Not crossed, not paid, not yet. The castle is calling, and you know it's not going to ask nicely this time. You back away from the door. The humming deepens, low and bone-shaking like a cello string stretched too tight in the belly of the earth. You feel it in your ribs, in your teeth. The old stones seem to pulse with it, as if the castle itself has a heartbeat now, and it's growing louder. The tapestry swings back into place, not from wind, from will, like the castle wants to hide the door again, but you've seen it, and it's too late to unsee. Ellen clutches your arm. We should go. You whisper, go where? There's no answer to that. There's no outside in a castle like this. Not really. Not when the walls remember. You and Lisbeth return to the servants' passage. Each step echoes more than it should. Your footfalls feel borrowed, as if the floor is letting you walk, for now. You duck into the laundry. It's quiet, safe, familiar, until it's not. The drying racks are all empty. You could swear you left linen hanging just hours ago, crisped and stiff with starch, fresh from the kettle, but now the lines hang bare, swaying like ropes in a windless room. Lisbeth whispers, "Where's the washing?" And the answer is written on the wall behind the kettle, in dripping ink, cleansed. You feel something press against your ankle. You jerk back. It's a doll, not Tom's, another one, this one older, cruder, stuffed with ragged bits of toe and shaped into a crooked body with stitched X's for eyes. Ellen picks it up and says, "I've seen this before. Mira had one just like it. Swore it kept her safe from bad dreams." You take it gently. It's warm, not from the fire, from someone. Someone who held it just minutes ago. A low scratching starts behind you. You spin. The wall. New ink. This time the letters write slow, one by one, each dragging down like they're being scraped through syrup. Trade. Lisbeth says, "Trade what?" The wall responds, "A name." Then another line appears. Not yours. Your skin prickles. You don't say it out loud, but you think it. Tom. The name in the ledger. The boy you tried to shield. The ledger thinks he belongs to you. Maybe that's your debt. You reach for the little book. You open to the page with your name. There's something new beneath it. Transfer pending. Lisbeth sees it too. "No," she breathes. "You can't give a name." "I haven't," you say. "Not yet." But the ink says otherwise. At the bottom of the page, another line is forming. Accepted. Ellen grabs the book, slams it shut. "No more," she snaps. "We burn it. Tonight." "But if we do," you say, "what happens to the names inside?" Lisbeth answers, "They burn with it." And that stops all of you. The steward, Joan, Mira, Tom, even your own, all written, all inked, all stored. Maybe that's the point, you say. Maybe it only ends when none of the names survive. Ellen shakes her head. Or maybe the castle just starts over. Fresh ledger, new ink. You all fall silent. Then you hear a knock. Not on the door, not on the wall, but inside the book. A tiny muffled tap. Once, twice. And on the third, the ledger opens itself. The pages flutter on their own. Not violently, not in some grand swirl, but slowly, deliberately, like a butler opening a door to a very private room. You, Lisbeth, and Ellen watch, breath held, as the little ledger settles on a page none of you have seen before. Not the roster, not the name log, something older. The parchment is darker here, cracked, written in a finer hand. The title reads, Indentures and Settlements, House Staff and Below. Ellen leans in. That's not English, she whispers. Not all of it. She's right. Some of the words are twisted. Half Latin, half law, and half something else. Words that shouldn't make sense, but do in the back of your mind. Like dreams you understand while dreaming, but forget as soon as you wake. There are paragraphs beneath each name. Some are long, some are crossed out. Others have annotations, dates, little symbols. A dagger beside one, a coin beside another, a tear. Tom's entry is there. Beside it, a feather. Then yours. But yours has no symbol, no coin, no dagger, nothing but one line beneath. Witness turned debtor, owed by choice, balance initiated. What does that mean? Lisbeth asks. Ellen squints. It means you weren't taken. You offered. You reel back. I never. But then you remember. The day you started keeping your notebook. The first time you wrote down something odd. The first time you thought, someone should remember this. That was your offering. You didn't spill blood. You didn't open a door. You didn't summon anything. You noticed. And in this castle, noticing has a cost. The ink begins to spread across the page again. Letters rise and twist, reshaping. A new title appears. Reckoning. You feel a pull in your stomach, in your spine, like a thread tugging gently upward, and in your mind, a picture. The ledger. Burning. Names curling into smoke. Faces drifting up the chimney. Forgotten. But with them, Tom, the steward, Joan. To destroy the book is to release them, or erase them. Lisbeth speaks low. Maybe that's what the castle wants. Not remembrance, not revenge. You whisper, silence. The ink has stopped moving. The book waits. The room feels still. Not peaceful, but balanced. Expectant. Ellen looks between you. What do you choose? You look down at the doll in your hand. Not Tom's, Mira's, but it feels the same. Soft, fraying, held tight by someone who wanted comfort. Someone who left behind more questions than answers. You clutch the doll and open the book one last time. There is now a new page. Blank. Waiting. A space for a name. You look at Lisbeth, you look at Ellen, and finally you look at the doll. Then you write, but not your name, not Tom's, not anyone alive. You write memory. The page drinks it in, not in ink, but in light. The letters glow, then fade, and the book closes itself. The thread pulling at your chest loosens. The weight eases. You're not free, but you're not taken. Not tonight. You don't tell the others what you wrote. You just let the book sit there on the table, its cover warm to the touch, like it's exhaling after a long-held breath. Ellen doesn't ask. Lisbeth doesn't push. There's a quiet understanding between the three of you now, something unspoken, the way people who've seen the same terrible thing don't need to explain it. You take the doll and tuck it into the corner of the hearth, behind the logs. Hey guys, tonight we're leaving behind our soft pillows and modern peace of mind. You're slipping through the gates of a medieval castle, stone-cold, torch-lit and teeming with quiet purpose. It's not your castle. It never will be. You're not a knight, not a lord, not even close. You're a servant, and tonight you've got the night shift. The outer courtyard is quiet now. The cook fires have long died down, and the last stable boy has disappeared into the hayloft. But your shift is just beginning. The guard gives you a nod, not of respect, but routine. You pass through the inner gate and immediately the chill hits you. The kind that isn't just cold air, but damp stone breathing on your skin. You already know the layout by heart. Left into the passage, duck beneath the iron sconce, past the tapestry with the faded boar. You don't need light. Your feet know the way. The castle never truly sleeps. The nobles like to think it does, but down here, underneath their oaken floorboards and feather beds, the servants keep moving. You pass a girl no older than 13 carrying a copper chamber pot with both hands, careful not to spill. Her eyes are swollen from lack of sleep, her shift stained. You nod in silent solidarity. No one talks much during the first hour of night. Voices carry through stone. You descend a narrow spiral stair into the undercroft, a vaulted cellar that serves as both storage and, for many, sleeping quarters. You're not assigned a bed tonight. You won't see one until the sky turns pale again. You drop off your wool cloak on a wooden peg and step into the passage where the rushlights are burning low. The air smells of vinegar and mouldy straw. A steward hands you a list scratched onto parchment with goosequill and barely legible ink. "Start with the lady's chambers," he whispers. "She's retired early, but she forgot her comb. Don't wake her. And mind the floorboards, they groan like the damned." Great. You tuck the list into your apron and head toward the north wing. This part of the castle is quieter. Too quiet. You know the lady has a habit of leaving her spaniel loose at night, and last week it sank its teeth into your hem. A small thing, but it's the little injuries that build up. As you walk, you notice something. The way the chill wraps tighter around your ankles, the faint scent of beeswax and lavender coming from the upper floor. You cross the hallway and nearly trip over a bucket someone left by the wall. You mutter a silent curse and adjust your footing. No torches here, only the low flicker of a single tallow candle left by the steps. This castle is a maze, but to you it's muscle memory. The list says 3 rooms need their fires stoked. One has a cracked brazier, another is missing the poker. But your job tonight isn't just kindling embers, it's being invisible, unseen, unheard. You learn to breathe shallowly, step lightly, and never, ever linger too long near a noble's door. You pass the large double doors of the solar. The lord is still in there with 2 visiting barons, likely drinking spiced wine and talking war. You don't dare knock. Even if they called, you'd think twice. The last girl to enter during a private council was sent to the kitchen with split knuckles and no explanation. You slip into the antechamber outside the ladies' room. Her comb lies exactly where it always does when she forgets it, on the corner chair by the hearth. You pinch it between cloth to avoid leaving oil from your skin. One of her maids will swear you stole it if you don't. As you turn to leave, you catch your reflection in a piece of polished silver. Face pale, eyes heavy. You think for a second how strange it is that someone so rich and powerful sleeps just a wall away while your fingers go numb with cold. But no time for reflection. You've got 11 more rooms to check before midnight. You step softly past the chapel alcove, where the statue of St. Sebastian watches you with blank, arrow-pierced eyes. It's absurd how quickly your night fills with unspoken rules. Don't look too long through noble windows. Don't scratch your head near the steward. Don't be seen standing still. The only time you're allowed to stop moving is if you're dead, or pretending not to breathe under a tapestry. You head down toward the laundry passage, where damp linen hangs in perpetual limbo. It drips softly, and the scent of lye lingers faintly in the stone. No one's there now, of course. This is your shortcut, one of many secret routes servants learn not by training, but by trial and bruised foreheads. A sudden rustling above startles you. You pause. Was that a rat in the eaves, or one of the castle cats prowling for scraps? Hard to say. You once heard a story about a castle rat the size of a goose that chewed through a noble's saddlebag. The story ended with a broken ankle and 3 nights in the stocks. For the servant, of course, not the rat. By the time you reach the southern corridor, your hands have gone numb. You flex your fingers. The cold down here isn't just winter, it's the kind of ancient chill soaked into mortar. You reach into your apron pocket and touch the sprig of rosemary you stole from the kitchens earlier. Not to eat, just the scent. It's a trick the scullery maid told you. Rosemary for memory and comfort. You're not sure it works, but it's better than nothing. A door creaks ahead. You freeze. It's just Tom, the boy who sweeps ashes from the great hearth. He's only 10, always barefoot and permanently covered in soot. He gives you a lopsided grin and holds up a splintered broom. "Got locked out again," he whispers. You sigh and open the servant's latch for him. One day he'll stop getting locked out. Or maybe he won't. You finally make your way to the west wing, where the tower stairs twist tighter than a miser's purse. Your thighs burn as you climb step by grinding step. At the top is the nursery chamber. You knock softly, then step inside. It smells of old milk and beeswax. A nursemaid nods to you sleepily and points toward the fire. It's almost out. You kneel, coax the last embers to life with a breath and a few curls of dried straw. The fire crackles softly. One of the children stirs and mutters something about wolves. You glance up. His eyes are shut, dreaming maybe, or remembering something you wish he wouldn't. You don't stay long. There's an unwritten rule here too. The longer you linger around noble children, the more likely someone accuses you of theft or mischief. Better to disappear like smoke. On your way back down the tower, your foot slips. Not far, just one step, but your knee connects with stone. You suppress the yelp, biting your lip until it stings. No one hears, no one helps. That's the nature of night service. Everything done in silence, every mistake absorbed into bruises and memory. You return to the Undercroft briefly to grab a fresh rushlight. The one in your hand is stuttering, and you don't want to be caught in the hallway with a dead flame. In the storage alcove you catch sight of something unexpected. An old ledger tucked beneath a cracked barrel. It's full of names you don't recognise. Servants, perhaps, who worked here before you. Some crossed out, some marked with odd symbols. You make a mental note to look again later, when the steward's not about. As the castle slips deeper into night, the rhythm of your tasks settles into your bones. Fetch, stoke, avoid, endure. Outside, the wind howls, but inside, everything is muted, except the quiet thoughts that cling to you like dust. You wonder what the nobles dream about. You wonder what it feels like to sleep with a full stomach and warm hands. You wonder if morning will ever really come. You pass under the stone arch leading back toward the courtyard, but you don't head outside, not yet. The guards are out there, and if they see you wandering without a task, you'll be sent to clean something sticky, smelly, or cursed. Probably all three. But tonight, you're expected at the gatehouse. The gatehouse may seem like a simple outpost, a small draughty room perched beside the outer wall. But at night, it's one of the castle's most peculiar corners, a strange in-between space, neither fully noble nor truly servant. The men stationed there aren't knights, not exactly. More like hired muscle with patchy armour and thicker accents. Most of them are locals. Peasants turned guards for bread and bitter ale. They're the keepers of thresholds, standing between danger and warmth, between outside and inside, and they never let you forget it. You reach the heavy oak door and rap gently. No answer. You knock again, louder. A voice inside shouts, "If it's that girl from the stables again, tell her we're not sharing our cheese." You open the door. 3 guards look up from their dice game. One is chewing something suspiciously green and mouldy. Another has his boots off and is rubbing his feet like he's milking a goat. The third, Sir Gawain, though no one calls him Sir without sarcasm, leans back in his chair and eyes you. "You bringing trouble or supper?" he says. You hold up the flask of boiled wine you were instructed to deliver from the kitchen hearth. It's hot, steeped with cloves and cinnamon, probably meant to soothe their bones and keep their tongues loose. Gawain grunts with approval and grabs it from your hands like a starving wolf. They don't thank you. They never do. You're about to leave when Gawain jerks his head toward the empty stool by the wall. "Sit. A moment." It's not really an invitation. It's a command wrapped in curiosity. These men know every servant who passes through the castle at night, and they watch more than they speak. You sit. The dice rattle again. Talk turns to things no one should really speak about in mixed company. Bandits caught in the woods, a merchant's missing daughter, and the lady's new falconer, who, rumour has it, was caught stealing feathers for his cap. Apparently nobles don't take kindly to fashion theft. You stay quiet, but you listen. That's the real purpose of these moments, to gather whispers. If you know what the guards talk about, you know what's brewing in the dark corners of the castle. Gawain leans in after a while, squinting at you. "You're the one who fixed the lady's brazier last week, aye?" You nod. He grunts again. "She didn't burn her slippers this time. Progress." It's hard to tell if he's joking. Gawain's face always looks like it's halfway between amusement and indigestion. Still, there's a certain reluctant respect in his tone. You suspect the guards talk more than they let on. About everything. About everyone. A sudden clang interrupts the conversation. The iron bell above the inner gate. Once, slow, deep. Not an alarm. Just a signal. The start of the midnight watch. A changing of hands. A new round of tired eyes. The men stir. One curses softly, reaching for his sword belt. Another knocks over the dice in haste. Gwyn rises slowly, joints crackling like firewood. He glances at you. Off with you now, and keep your head down near the chapel tonight. They're burying that priest's ledger in the wall. You pause. Why the wall, you ask? He snorts. So no one reads it, fool. Some things are best left to stone. You don't ask what's in the ledger. You just nod, rise, and slip out the door before they remember you were ever there. You slip out of the gatehouse and into the open courtyard, your feet crunching softly on frost-dusted gravel. The moon is out tonight, half shielded behind clouds, throwing silver streaks across the battlements. You shouldn't be out here long. Open air after the midnight bell is for guards, ghosts, and fools. But you've got a reason, or so you've told yourself. There's always a reason when you're asked why you're somewhere you're not supposed to be. You make your way along the edge wall, ducking behind stacked barrels and old cartwheels, keeping to the shadows like a cat with something to hide. The chapel looms ahead, small, crooked, and quieter than the graveyard behind it. That's where the priest's ledger is going, apparently. Into the wall. You pause at the corner. Something about the story gnaws at you. Why hide a ledger in stone? Why not burn it, toss it, bury it in the woods? But you already know the answer, because stone keeps secrets better than fire ever could. You circle to the side where the mason's tools were left earlier in the day, just beside a loose slab near the sacristy. You don't touch anything, you just look. A narrow hole gapes behind the removed block, deep enough to fit a bound book. Inside, you think you see the edge of a worn leather cover, but you don't lean closer. That would be asking for trouble. Instead, you pull your cloak tighter and move on, quickly. By the time you return to the inner gate, the guards have rotated. A younger one is on duty now, barely more than 16. His helmet looks too big, and he's trying hard not to look nervous. You give him a nod. He doesn't return it. That's fine. He will, one day, after his first winter. Inside again, the hallway feels warmer, probably because your face is frozen. You flex your jaw to bring the blood back, wipe your nose on your sleeve, and duck into the nearest passage. Suddenly, from around the corner comes a sharp voice. You! It's the steward. He's not shouting, but his voice has the icy precision of someone who's been obeyed all his life. He doesn't like being surprised. What were you doing outside? He asks, eyes narrowed. You don't lie, not exactly. Delivering wine to the gatehouse. Gawain asked me to wait for the watch change. The steward stares at you. You don't blink. Finally he exhales. Fine, but there's a spill outside the lady's chamber. Some fool knocked over an ink bottle. If it stains the carpet, you'll be the one to scrape it. You nod, already turning. Oh, and boy, he adds, stay away from the chapel wall. You don't answer. You just walk. As you reach the corridor near the ladies' room again, a rush of movement catches your eye. A maid, older than most, maybe in her 30s, slips out of a chamber with a bundle clutched tightly to her chest. She looks startled to see you. Then she hurries away without a word. You don't chase. You've seen that look before. Instead, you turn to the stain near the lady's door. It's ink, all right. Dark, sticky, still fresh. You crouch down, dip a rag into the vinegar flask tied at your belt and begin scrubbing. It's slow work and the carpet hisses beneath your cloth. The vinegar stings your nose, but it's nothing compared to the ache in your knees. You've been crouching too much tonight. As you clean, a soft sound rises from the room beyond the door. A woman's voice, not speaking, but humming. A lullaby. Or a prayer. It's hard to tell which. You finish the task and stand, leaving behind a faint scent of vinegar and damp wool. As you step away, you glance back once. That carpet, woven with lions and thistles, must cost more than you'll earn in 10 years. And still, it only takes one careless hand to ruin it. Or a spilled truth. You walk back toward the Undercroft, already sensing the night shifting again. The castle never truly sleeps, and neither do you. You descend the steps back into the Undercroft, your soles pressing into grooves worn by 100 years of servant feet. This part of the castle doesn't echo like the halls above. It swallows sound. Thick stone, thick air, thicker silence. Here, below the bustle and boasting of nobles, is where the real machinery of the castle churns on. Slow, quiet, and mostly forgotten. The Undercroft isn't just a basement, it's a world of its own. You pass the wine racks first, dozens of them, tall as men and twice as dusty. The bottles are sealed with wax or rag, labelled in Latin, hoarded like treasure. You've never dared touch one. One boy did. He lost his position, his teeth, and very nearly an ear. Beyond that is the main chamber, lined with barrels of grain, kegs of dried fish, and sacks of onions that make your eyes sting just walking past. Everything smells of damp wood,